Chapter 52. When Yu returned from outside, the living room was bustling with noise. Loud noises reverberated in the air. Wen was rolling around on the floor, making the floor clean. His chubby hands and legs waved at the sky from time to time. He was like a little fat turtle that was trying to turn over but could not. Fuyun Ruo facepalmed. Where did Wen learn to throw a tantrum like this? She did not know whether to laugh or cry. Wen howled from time to time. He kept glancing at Fuyun Ruo and 2 drops of crocodile tears came out from the corners of his eyes. Why wasn't his mother's heart softening? He was also tired from rolling around. Yu looked at the white and chubby little ball rolling around. Coupled with the child's sharp but not ear-piercing voice, he sounded like a little pig squeaking. Yu squatted at the side and poked the little chubby leg that was like a lotus root. He smiled and said, "Roll around, little fat pig." Wen. Feeling offended, he suddenly became angry. "You're the fat one. This is baby fat. It'll be gone when you grow up." Yes. Yu nodded perfunctorily and pinched the flesh on his little chubby leg. Wen snorted from his little nostrils. After being interrupted by Yu, Wen couldn't continue howling. He crawled up from the ground and when he passed by, he stretched out his little foot and stepped on Yu's foot. Then, he ran to Fu Yunruo's side and hugged her thigh. He complained, "Mommy, Uncle, you bullied me." Yu raised his eyebrows. His foot was being stepped on and it felt like an itch. The little guy was becoming more and more rude to him recently. He said calmly, "Little tattletale." Wen looked up. Yu. He looked even more like a little pig. Fuyun squatted down and patted Wen's clothes. After rolling on the ground, her clothes were covered in dust. Wen looked at Fuyun Ruo with a puzzled expression. Why couldn't he act coquettishly? When he saw that his underlings wanted to eat candies and buy small toys, he could get his way by rolling on the ground a few times. Thus, she changed to another way to act coquettishly. "Mommy, just promise me." Meng's cute little voice sounded as if it was mixed with sugar. It was so sweet that Fuyun also felt sweet in her heart. However, he still had to be firm in his stance. "No. Mommy baby loves you the most." Fuyun allowed him to act cute and coquettishly, but she remained unmoved. "No." Yu looked at the mother and son. He had only been out for a while. What had he missed? Yu asked, "What is Wen trying to do?" Fuyun Ruo briefly told him about the program's director looking for her. Then, she said helplessly, "He wants to participate in the program." Yu. He lowered his head and looked at Wen who was hugging Fuyun Ruo's thighs and looking at him with a pair of big eyes. His little eyes were constantly sending out signals. "Quickly help me say something. We are good friends. This isn't fun." Wen retorted angrily, "I don't want to play. I want to earn money." "Uncle, you was too inconsiderate. What happened to being willing to sacrifice himself for a friend?" He didn't even help him with a small favor and even slandered him for wanting to play. He was a man who wanted to earn big money. This friend didn't understand him at all. He didn't want him anymore. Wen stared at Yu with condemnation. Yu could only say, "I misunderstood." Only then did Wen retract his gaze in satisfaction. Then, he looked up at Fuyun Ruo. "Mommy, just agree." Wen. Fuyun Ruo patiently reasoned with him. "If you go to film a show, there will be many people who don't know you who will see you. Some of them might not like you and scold you. If Mommy sees someone scolding you, she will be very sad." "I'm not afraid." Wen's voice sounded like he was about to cry. "Mommy." He had experienced an overwhelming amount of ridicule, abuse, and curses. At worst, it would be as dark as his previous life. He could bear it, but he couldn't bear his mother being surrounded by evil intentions. Wen thought that he would perform well on the show and let more people like him. Then, he would like his mother as well. This time, he would take good care of his reputation. He would not let his reputation be mixed and he would not let others have the chance to slander him. Seeing this, Yu carried Wen, who was about to cry. My little friend is under my protection. Naturally, he can do whatever he wants. Sai Yu looked at Fu Yunruo and said seriously, "Don't worry, I will protect Wen. Wen looked at Fu Yunruo expectantly. Fu Yunruo hesitated. Sai Yu promised, "With me around, no matter if Wen wants to film a television series, a movie, or participate in a show, there won't be a problem. He won't be hurt at all. Otherwise, you will hold me responsible." "Thank you, Uncle Yu." Wen was so happy that his eyes narrowed. He hugged Sai Yu's shoulder and leaned over to rub his face. This friend was really loyal. He didn't let him down. Fu Yunruo suddenly remembered that in the original novel, Wen had been in the entertainment industry since he was in his teens. Could it be that Wen loved acting? If that was the case, should she stop him? "Baby, do you like acting?" Fu Yunruo's expression was a little complicated. In the original novel, he could become a top celebrity without anyone protecting him. This time, with someone protecting him, he would have a smooth journey, right? Fu Yunruo had heard of Sai Yu's status in the entertainment industry. He was also the only person in the original novel who retired after achieving success. Even 20 years later, he was still a legendary figure. With Sai Yu protecting Wen, he wouldn't be so bumpy, right? Otherwise, she would still be around. The wall between the live broadcast industry and the entertainment industry was not thick. If she worked a little harder and had more connections, she would be able to let Wen have a smoother journey, right? They wouldn't end up like the original novel. When heard his mother's question, he was stunned for a moment. He looked hesitant. He had never thought about whether he liked acting or not. In his heart, acting was just a way for him to make a living. Did he like acting? He thought about how he would spend the entire night thinking about a role, just to act it to the best of his ability. He thought about how he was an extra, lying on the ground for 3 to 4 hours under the scorching sun. Even if he didn't have any scenes, he still worked hard to complete it. He thought about how he wanted to hone his acting skills, when Wen's eyes became brighter, and at that moment, they were as bright as a flower. "I like acting." Yes, he liked acting. He liked to play different roles and live different lives. He liked to be in the limelight and be the center of attention. Fu Yunruo wavered. "Let me think about it, should she agree?" But the child was still so young. Sai Yu put Wen down and patted the back of his head. "Go and play with your friends." Wen looked up at Uncle Yu, then at his mother. "Mom, I'll go out first." "Go ahead, be careful." Wen hesitated for a moment, then ran out. When the child's small figure disappeared from sight, Sai Yu looked at Fu Yunruo. "I understand your concerns. Don't worry, with me around, he won't be disturbed in any way." Fu Yunruo hesitated and said, "Mr. Yu, I know you treat Wen well and have always tolerated Wen's willfulness, but we've already troubled you enough. We really can't give you any more trouble." "It's no trouble at all." Sai Yu smiled. Wen is very clever. If he wants to develop in the entertainment industry, he can sign a contract with Apple Entertainment. The company will protect him. In order to increase his credibility, he continued, "I'm one of the shareholders of the company. Moreover, with Yuan Xin and Kai Wei-cheng around, they should believe me, right?" One was recognized as the #1 manager in the entertainment industry and loved Wen as his own son. The other was a top manager and had a close relationship with Fu Yunruo. He was also Uncle Guo's student. Fu Yunruo was not worried. With these connections, wouldn't Wen be doted on in Apple Entertainment? Moreover, Fu Yunruo had a very good impression of Apple Entertainment. The way he protected his son was really reassuring. "Oh, so Sai Yu also had shares in the company." Fu Yunruo was surprised for a moment, but she did not find it surprising. Sai Yu was the #1 in the company, so it was normal for him to have shares in the company. No wonder he did not open his own studio. She herself had almost been persuaded by brother Kai to join Apple Entertainment. Although it did not work out in the end, she had to say that it was really fate. You can sign an agreement with Apple Entertainment. Of course, you won't force Wen to act or do other things. If he wants to act, he will act. If he doesn't want to act, he won't act. If he wants to leave the entertainment industry, he can leave at any time. When he grows up, He will prioritize Apple Entertainment. You can consider whether to let Yuan Xin or Kai Wei Cheng be the manager. I personally lean towards Yuan Xin. Kai Wei Cheng has 3 first- and second-tier artists under him, but Yuan Xin only has me as an artist. His private life will not be disturbed. He will be like an ordinary child, living a carefree life. The last sentence hit the spot that Fu Yunruo was most concerned about. She was hesitant because Wen was too young. She was worried that after he became a child star, he would not be able to live a carefree and happy life like an ordinary child. She was worried that he would come into contact with the complicated world of adults too early. If he could really do what Sayu said, she would not reject him. Fu Yunruo thought that perhaps after filming this variety show, Wen would not be interested in these things. There was no need for her to think too much. With her and brother Kai around, they would be able to protect a child no matter what. She thought about it for a while, then thought about it for a while. In the end, she gritted her teeth and said, "Okay." Sayu smiled and said, "I'll get someone to draft a contract later." Since she had already agreed, Fu Yunruo was straightforward and said, "Okay, but I have a request. I want to be there when is filming." No matter what, she had to see it with her own eyes to feel at ease. Of course. Sayu called Yuan Xin and explained the matter clearly in front of Fu Yunruo. The contents of the contract were very detailed. Fu Yunruo thought about it. She had never seen such a preferential contract before. On one hand, she felt a little embarrassed and felt that she was taking advantage of him. On the other hand, because it was Wen, she thickened her skin and accepted this kindness. Wen was playing outside absent-mindedly. He kept thinking about whether Uncle Yu had persuaded his mother. In the end, he could not help but reject his friend's invitation and ran home alone. When he reached home, his mother and Uncle Yu were chatting peacefully, but they were not talking about him. "Is that so? I haven't been back to the capital for a long time. So it has changed so much. To be honest, I don't have much memory of the capital. When we return to the capital, I'll take you there. I definitely won't disappoint you. Once your face is exposed, you'll probably be surrounded and unable to move. Are you sure you can take me there?" "Of course, my disguise skills are very good. I'll let you see it then. Then I'll look forward to it." Wen tilted his head. For some reason, he felt that he was a little extra, as if he should not have come back. Wen shouted, "Mom!" Then, he rushed over like a small cannonball and threw himself into Fu Yunruo's arms, announcing his strong presence. Fu Yunruo carried Wen up and sat him on her lap. "Why are you back so early?" "I missed Mom." Fu Yunruo pinched his little face. "Your little mouth is so sweet. Did you eat honey?" Hee. Wen twisted his little body and said cutely, "I love Mom the most." Sayu looked at the mother and son who acted as if there was no one else around and narrowed his eyes slightly. He sized up the little guy who was acting coquettishly against Fu Yunruo and thought to himself, "I shouldn't have spoken up for him just now. Look at how he's kicking me to the curb after I've outlived my usefulness. Is he going to throw me away after using me?" Wen glanced at Sayu from the corner of his eyes. His little eyes were filled with pride. Mom was his. Mom wouldn't neglect him. Wen coaxed Fu Yunruo until she was beaming with joy. After a long time, he asked carefully, "Mom, did you agree?" Fu Yunruo saw the little hope that could not be hidden in his eyes and did not beat around the bush. "Yes, I agreed." Wen's little face instantly lit up. He leaned over and kissed her face softly. "I love Mom the most." "Thank you, Mom." Fu Yunruo deliberately put on a straight face. "Don't tell me I won't love Mom if I don't agree. I love you. I love you so much." As he spoke, he even made a heart with his little chubby hand. Fu Yunruo was amused by Wen's words. Ahem. Sayu Ruo, who was at the side, could not help but cough lightly. He looked at Wen. He was the one who had contributed greatly. In order to persuade Fu Yunruo to agree, he had spent a lot of effort. Wen turned to look at him. She blinked and said with concern, "Uncle Yu, have you caught a cold? Remember to take your medicine, otherwise, if it gets serious, you'll have to get a butt injection." Fu Yunruo could not hold back. "Fat. Sayu." He looked at Wenwen's innocent and harmless little face and secretly gritted his teeth. This brat. While they were chatting and laughing, Yuanshin rushed over with a head full of sweat. He held a briefcase in his hand and his face was flushed red. Hey, from now on, I'll be Wenwen's manager. Little Wenwen, please take good care of me. Yuanshin beamed with joy. He never expected that before Yu retired from the entertainment industry, he would be able to do such a great thing. It was great that he had brought his son into the entertainment industry. He could still continue to show his enthusiasm. Yu, this man, was sometimes a little obnoxious, but he would still inform him of important decisions. For example, before filming that movie, he had already expressed his intention to retire from the entertainment industry. Yuanshin understood. After all, this ancestor had entered the entertainment industry mainly out of interest, but it was more of a hobby. There was still a huge business waiting for him to take care of. Yu had not filmed much in the past few years, mainly because he had already taken over the family business. 2 years ago, he had already taken over the family business completely. In the future, he would definitely not have enough time to film anymore. Yuanshin had taken care of a few celebrities. Although they had all achieved great success, they had all left the entertainment industry at the top of their careers or for other reasons. He felt mentally tired and had already decided not to take care of any more celebrities. He had already decided to retire behind the scenes. But now, he could. Yuanshin looked at Wenwen with sparkling eyes. What a good seedling with spiritual energy. He could still do it. He could definitely turn Wenwen into a top child star and let the whole world look forward to his growth. Wenwen blinked and was so shocked that she could not react. Manager? Uncle Yuanshin? Did he hear wrongly? What did Mom and Uncle Yu discuss? Wasn't it just filming a show first? Why did they even discuss signing a contract with a manager? Fu Yunruo was confused when she heard Yuanshin's words. She did not seem to have said who would be her manager. Yuanshin could not wait any longer. He took out a stack of papers from his briefcase. Miss Fu, take a look at this contract. If there are no problems, you can sign it. Fu Yunruo picked it up and read it carefully. Yuanshin could not wait for Fu Yunruo to sign it immediately. He did not disturb her and it was quiet for a moment. Yuanshin looked at Wenwen and smiled amiably. Wenwen had a serious expression on her face as she read the contract with Fu Yunruo in a serious manner. It was as if she could understand it. He wiped his sweat and gave Yu a flattering look. Although Yu had a domineering personality and was very picky and hard to please, he was really good. He was actually willing to hand his son over to him. What kind of trust was this? He was so touched. Yu's hair stood on end when he saw Yuanshin's mushy look. He could not help but glare at him and then looked at the adult and child. Their extremely similar faces had the same expression. It was as if they were cast from the same mold. Fu Yunruo finished reading the contract carefully. The contents were basically the same as what Yu had said. There were no loopholes in the contract. It was a contract that was completely biased towards them. Fu Yunruo felt that Yu and the rest were at a disadvantage. She was too embarrassed to let them suffer too much. Fu Yunruo pointed at the remuneration. This percentage. Wasn't it too much? Yu glanced at her. You think that 30 to 70 is too little? I think so too. Why don't we change it to 19 to 90? Yuanshin also nodded in agreement. Anyway, Apple Entertainment was one of Yu's subsidiaries. Wenwen was Yu's biological son and could be the future heir of the family. It would not be too much even if all the remuneration went to him. The entire company had to treat him like an ancestor. Fu Yunruo. You didn't see wrongly. It's Apple Entertainment's number 1, Wenwen's number 9. No. Fu Yunruo waved her hands. Let's do 30 to 70. Fu Yunruo was afraid that if she continued to talk, it would be too ridiculous to change it to 19 to 90. She quickly signed the contract. Yuanshin quickly put away the contract. Happy cooperation. Brother Yuan had already volunteered to be Wenwen's manager. If Fu Yunruo did not have any objections, She would not have to trouble brother Kai. It was also quite good. I'll give you the contract after the company stamps it and sends it back in 2 days. Fu Yunruo was actually a little doubtful. Would the company be willing to sign such a generous contract? However, when she thought about Sai Yu's status as the #1 in Apple Entertainment, she threw this little doubt to the back of her mind. Yuan Shin came in a hurry and left in a hurry. After knowing that Wen wanted to participate in the variety show, he went to look for the production team aggressively. Time passed quickly and it was soon time for dinner. Fu Yunruo went to the kitchen to cook. Wen's seat had been moved. At this moment, he was sitting on Sai Yu's lap. Even though he saw the contract with his own eyes and his mother signed it as his guardian, he still could not believe it. He felt that he was dreaming. In his previous life, even if he became a top celebrity, he would not be able to sign such a generous contract. At this moment, he was still a 4-year-old kid who had not debuted. The legendary manager in the entertainment industry had become his manager. He was considered an artist of Apple Entertainment. It was Apple Entertainment. Why did it feel so unreal? He lowered his head and looked at the big hand in front of him. He hugged it with his small hand and bit the muscle at the base of his thumb. Then, he looked up and asked foolishly, "Uncle Yu, does it hurt?" "Sai Yu." He lowered his head and looked at the circle of teeth marks at the base of his thumb. There was still wet saliva on it. Whose family was this silly child from? Chapter 53. Yuan Shin was very efficient. It didn't take long for him to sign a contract with the production team and join the show as a special guest. He would only be filming for 3 days. A special guest would receive the same treatment as an A-list celebrity. In order for the filming to go smoothly, Yuan Shin required that Wen had to team up with Sai Yu. Children would only feel safe around familiar people. This way, they wouldn't have to worry about not being able to continue filming. The production team was also burning their boats. No matter what, this show had to be successful. Director Peng knew that if the show died, his career as a director would come to an end. Therefore, after signing the contract, he wrote the most eye-catching script without stopping. However, the special guest was still too young, so they couldn't ask for more. As long as he could interact with Sai Yu, the show would be stable. After signing the contract, the production team immediately made an official announcement online. Of course, they said it beautifully. The general idea was that if Fang Shui left the show for some reason, the production team would sincerely invite a special guest and hope that the audience would support them. The world would always be more tolerant of children. It had to be said that the production team played a beautiful hand. Even if Fang Shui's fans were unfriendly to the special guest, the passers-by would still stand on the special guest's side. Moreover, this special guest was so delicate and cute. After all, the production team also explained the reason for inviting the special guest. The celebrity they wanted to invite couldn't find the time. Wen wasn't unknown. He had a group of Papa and Mama fans. In order to invite this special guest, the production team had to persuade his parents to agree. Fu Yun also posted on her social media platform that the special guest was going to be on the show. She hoped that everyone would take care of her. Yoon Juo's fans were happy to see this. Yoon is so helpless right now. 23333, I guess the production team used a lot of candy to tempt Zai Zai. I just want to say, well done. My child is going to be on the show. Mama is so proud. My child. Arth. Countless fans jumped around and spread the news under the official announcement of the show on the platform's forum. After confirming that he would be on the show, Wen had been thinking about what kind of persona he should create to attract fans. He wanted a lot of popularity so that his mother could bask in the limelight. What kind of special guest was the most popular? Mischievous? Smart? Cute? Adorable? Wen recalled the adults' attitudes towards children with different personalities and found that most adults liked sensible and smart children from other families. Wen clenched his fists and made a great wish. He wanted to be someone else's child. Early the next morning, when the sky was only slightly bright, the extremely excited Wen woke up Fu Yun. Fu Yun looked at the time. Oh my god, it was only 5 o'clock. Wen jumped up and down on the bed. Mommy, Mommy, it's time to wake up. Fu Yun Ruo. She laid on her back on the bed and looked at the bouncing little one. She said helplessly, Baby, the show starts at 8:30. It's still early. It's getting late, Mom. Wen said seriously, I still have to do my hair. It'll take a long time. Yo, you even know how to style? Fu Yun could not help but laugh. Of course. Wen proudly stuck out his little belly. I'm an adult. Baby, why are you so cute? Fu Yun Ruo could not help but carry Wen up and rub him. After such a commotion, Fu Yun Ruo also became energetic and got out of bed. Wen got off the edge of the bed and put on her little shoes. His little face was flushed red. He thought to himself, I'm already so big, but my mother is still so childish. But who asked her to be his mother? He could only tolerate it. Sigh. The big and small movements also woke Sai Yu and Aunt Mai up. The old house instantly became lively. After washing up, Fu Yun Ruo went to the kitchen to cook breakfast. Wen had already run into the room, opened the wardrobe, and rummaged through the clothes to wear today. He changed a few sets, but he always felt that there was nothing new about them. They were not eye-catching and could not show his handsome and cool side. Wen's upper body was in the wardrobe, and only his 2 little feet were dangling outside the wardrobe. He found a cool military green imitation uniform from last summer, and his eyes lit up. He had only worn this uniform a few times, and it was 80% new. At that time, it was still very loose for him. He should be able to wear it this year. Wen took out the uniform and quickly changed into it. The length of the clothes was still suitable, but it was a little tight. Wen did not grow much taller, but he had grown a lot horizontally. The military green shirt of the same style was a little tight. Wen lowered her head and saw the outline of her belly that was very obvious. How could this be? Although he was still young, he still needed to be in shape. Wen took a deep breath and tried to shrink his stomach, but it was not very effective. It was still round. Wen, it's time for breakfast. Coming. Wen ran out. Fu Yun Ruo saw Wen come out in a new set of clothes and exclaimed in surprise. Wen, why are you wearing this? Last year's clothes obviously did not fit this year. Fu Yun Ruo did not expect that he would still be able to find last year's clothes. People with fair skin wore military green clothes that complemented their skin better. Wen looked more exquisite and cute, but it was not suitable to wear out. Wen said, it looks good. Fu Yun Ruo came out with a bowl of meat porridge and placed it on the table to cool. Ayo, Wen is really a spirited child. Aunt Mai praised. Wen said sweetly, Grandma looks good in this flowery shirt too. Really? Aunt Mai smiled and lowered her head to touch the smooth shirt. Your mother bought it. Aunt Mai only gave birth to a son. She did not expect that she would still be able to enjoy the blessing of having a daughter when she was old. My mother also bought mine. Sai Yu walked out of the kitchen and glanced at Wen. He was full of youthful energy. Fu Yun Ruo did not expect that Wen would like this set of clothes so much. He had never shown any special preferences when it came to wearing it. Instead, he liked to wear different styles of clothes. Wen smelled the fragrant porridge and secretly swallowed his saliva. He subconsciously touched his small stomach and refused. Mom, I'm not hungry. Fu Yun Ruo turned his head and looked over. You don't want to eat breakfast? I'm not eating. Wen replied crisply. If you don't eat, you'll be hungry. Fu Yun Ruo carried Wen onto a small high stool and stirred the porridge in front of him with a small spoon. The fragrance seemed to be stronger. Wen hesitated. He lowered his head and looked at his small stomach that was more obvious when he sat down. If he ate, it would be even more obvious. Fu Yun Ruo noticed his small movements and knew what he was thinking after thinking about it. The child wanted to save face. He felt that his chubby body was too obvious on the show and wanted to lose weight. Fu Yun Ruo said gently, Wen, this set of clothes doesn't fit you anymore. Let's change to another set, okay? Don't tell me you want to wear clothes that don't fit you on the show. Wen hesitated. Fu Yun Ruo said firmly, no matter what Wen wears, he will be the prettiest child in the village. Wen said proudly, of course. He thought about it and agreed. If he wore something that didn't fit him, it would also damage his handsome image. I'll change into another set of clothes later. After being comforted by his mother, Wen also changed his mind. Hence, he held the spoon in his chubby hand and happily ate his breakfast. In the end, Wen changed into a pure white t-shirt and denim pants with suspenders. He even wore an exquisite little straw hat on his head. Then, Fu Yunruo held his hand and accompanied Sai Yu and Yuan Xin to the location where the production team would gather. This was Fu Yunruo's request. She did not want her home to appear on camera. The production team had already gathered. When they arrived, they were already busy inside and outside. The production team had set up a few shelters under an old tree at the entrance of the village. The guests were resting and putting on their makeup inside. Yuan Xin was already talking to Director Peng at the production team. When he saw them coming over, he hurriedly said, Wen, you're here? You're here. A woman wearing a light-colored suit and exquisite makeup walked out of the shelter. When she saw Wen, her eyes lit up. Wen, this is Auntie Xiaoyu. She will be your exclusive makeup artist from now on. Wen looked up at her and called out clearly, Sister Xiaoyu. Pu Xiaoyu was instantly overjoyed. What a cute child. Pu Xiaoyu could not help but hold her face. She had already thought that he was cute in the video. She did not expect him to be even cuter in person. She looked at the woman beside him who looked very similar to the child. When the two of them stood together, she felt that they were a pair of siblings. She had seen many female celebrities who had given birth and spent a lot of effort to recover. However, she was the only one who could recover so well. She was even more envious. Go on, the show is about to start, Yuan Xin urged. Miss Yu, I'll leave Wen to you. Don't worry, Miss Fu. I'll definitely dress Wen up beautifully. I'm older than you. Just call me Sister Yu. Okay, Sister Yu. You can call me Yunruo too. The two women quickly became closer and then brought the child into the shelter together. Sai Yu, who did not seem to exist at the side, was speechless. She felt neglected. Sai Yu asked Yuan Xin, why did you let her come? Didn't you say that it's just a variety show and that we can use the production team's makeup artist to appear on camera? Yuan Xin said matter-of-factly, how can the production team's makeup artist compare to our team's personal makeup artist? It's Wen's first time on a show. Naturally, she has to be in her best condition. How can we just let it be? Sai Yu, who had been the only one on the set without an assistant, was speechless. Sai Yu felt a little jealous. Could it be that this little brat had caused everyone around him to betray him? You're a man. Why are you jealous of a little kid? Yuan Xin glared at him unhappily. He wanted to ask what kind of attitude this damn man had. How could he be jealous of his own son? Considering that there were too many people around, Yuan Xin spoke vaguely. In the shelter, Pu Xiaoyu was putting on Wen's makeup. His skin was fair and rosy, tender and smooth. His little mouth was also rosy. Pu Xiaoyu openly took advantage of him for a long time before saying, you don't have to put on much makeup. Just put on some powder and it'll be fine. Fu Yunruo watched as Pu Xiaoyu gently patted Wen's face and applied a light layer of natural color to his little lips. It's done. Fu Yunruo carefully sized him up. He didn't look any different without the makeup, but he seemed to be more spirited and bright. Pu Xiaoyu saw that Fu Yunruo only patted some water on her face and didn't even apply sunscreen. She immediately said, Yunruo, don't you know how to take care of your skin? Huh? Fu Yunruo touched her face. No. In such a remote place, dressing up would make her look strange. She had always been barefaced. What a waste. Pu Xiaoyu lamented. If I had your face, I wouldn't have to do anything. I would just have to take care of this face every day. She pressed Fu Yunruo down on her seat and opened her makeup box to take out a set of skincare products. How can you ruin such a beautiful face? If you don't take care of your skin when you're young, you might not be able to tell the difference when you're young. But when you're older, it'll be obvious. The condition of your skin can't compare to your peers who have taken care of themselves for years. Is that so? Fu Yunruo kept listening to Pu Xiaoyu talk about the benefits of taking care of one's skin and the serious consequences of not taking care of it. After all, which woman didn't want to be beautiful? If she could make herself beautiful, she wouldn't want to grow old and ugly. Pu Xiaoyu observed her face and felt even more heartache. If she took good care of her skin, it would be even better. Wen listened from the side and was very concerned. I'll make sure Mom takes care of her skin in the future. This set of skincare products isn't the most suitable for your skin. I'll recommend another set. Although it's a little expensive, the effects are really good. It's also suitable for your age. Fu Yunruo and Pu Xiaoyu added WX and promised that they would take good care of their skin in the future. Wen glanced at the price link sent by Pu Xiaoyu. It was so expensive. He thought to himself that he had to earn more money. After Pu Xiaoyu gave Fu Yunruo some good skincare products, Xiaoyu sat down and did a little makeup. At this moment, the production crew's guests came over to greet Wen and Fu Yunruo and express their goodwill. Wang Huaibei was a little embarrassed. He was the first one among the guests who had said something bad to them in person. Only Xin Shu was more at ease. Fu Yunruo had a polite smile on her face as she led Wen around to exchange pleasantries. After a round of greetings, she felt that her face was about to turn stiff from smiling. Not long after, the production crew was about to start filming. Fu Yunruo said a few words to Wen, telling him not to be nervous and to treat it as a game. Then she handed Wen over to Xiaoyu and walked away from the camera to stand with the production crew. Wen looked at the camera of the live broadcast equipment and felt a sense of nervousness that he hadn't felt in a long time. But after a while, he calmed down and didn't cower. He had seen bigger situations before. As usual, the guests opened the show to liven up the atmosphere and then brought out the special guests. The director and production crew nervously looked at the data dynamics backstage. The moment the show started broadcasting, its peak popularity immediately increased explosively. Even though Fang Shui's fans had clamored to not watch the show and not contribute to the show's traffic during the official announcement yesterday, the current figures were not much different from before the show stopped broadcasting. In fact, there was even a slight trend of increasing. Only when Xiaoyu joined the production team would there be such an explosive increase in viewership. Everyone in the program crew was grinning from ear to ear, unable to contain their joy. This variety show had not been going smoothly from the start. During this period, there had been ups and downs and it had even been stopped broadcasting. But who knew if it was a blessing in disguise? Their show was destined to be a hit. It couldn't be stopped. The villagers' enthusiasm for the production crew was reignited. When they heard that Wen was going to film the show, they all followed behind and prepared to see how Wen would film the show. The production crew didn't have any requirements for Xiaoyu and Wen's team. The mission cards were super simple. They had to ask Wen to go to the Dong family's house to borrow rice and vegetables from the Shi family's house. Then, Xiaoyu would cook lunch for the two of them. They didn't expect it to be such a simple task. The audience watched with relish. The popularity of the live broadcast room was still steadily increasing. Wen thought about his own character. As a smart and sensible child, he would be considerate of the adults and help them as much as he could. The production crew only gave him a cabbage and asked him to use this cabbage to exchange for a carrot from the Shi family's second uncle, an egg from the Dong family's Grandma Lin, and a pig bone from the village's butcher. How could he use this cabbage to exchange for the requested items? This time, he would have to display his intelligence and wisdom. Wen expressed that this was a small matter. He would first use the cabbage to exchange for 4 eggs, then use 1 egg to exchange for 2 carrots, and then use 2 eggs to exchange for a pig bone. Wen told Xiaoyu his idea seriously. Xiaoyu expressed that he was really smart. Wen tried hard to keep the corners of his lips raised. Yes, I have to be steady. I can't be arrogant. I just have to silently praise myself for being quick-witted. Xiaoyu carried the basket. Wen was considerate and wanted to help. However, with his small body, he couldn't carry both sides of the basket. He could only use his small hands to support the bottom of the basket. He was very familiar with the river village. He directly brought Xiaoyu to Grandma Lin's house. When they reached their destination, Wen knocked on the door and said cutely, "Grandma Lin, can I use this cabbage to exchange for 3 eggs?" Grandma Lin responded kindly, "Sure, Wen, wait." Grandma Lin walked steadily into the house and came out with a basket in a short while. Wen carried the cabbage. This cabbage was very heavy and Wen had a hard time carrying it. Then, he passed it to Grandma Lin. Grandma Lin took the cabbage and put it aside. Then, she lifted the cloth on the basket, revealing round and delightful eggs. Wen carried the basket and looked up at Grandma Lin expectantly. Grandma Lin grabbed the eggs in 2 hands and quickly placed them on Wen's basket. In the blink of an eye, there were 1, 2, 3, 4, 12 eggs. These are purebred free-range eggs. Take them back and let your mother stew them for you. They're very fragrant. Wen hurriedly refused. "That's enough, Grandma Lin. I only want 3. How can 3 be enough for a glutton like you? Take more. Grandma has a lot at home." Grandma Lin wanted to take more. Wen had already placed the basket gently on the ground. Then, he grabbed one in each hand and put it back. With a serious face, he said, "Grandma Lin, I'm filming a show. I've calculated that I only need 3. Oh. Grandma Lin remembered and nodded. "I understand, I know. I have to cooperate with you, right? All right, I'll only give you 3. As she spoke, Grandma Lin even blinked. Wen nodded. Grandma Lin asked softly, "Wen, why did you think of filming a show? Will you be a big star in the future?" "I'm not a star yet." Wen puffed up his chubby face and said in a serious voice, "I want to earn money to buy cosmetics and skincare products for Mom." After being reminded by Sister Xiaoyu, Wen also thought of this serious problem. He could talk about earning money and saving capital in the future. The most important thing now was to buy skincare products for his mother. She doesn't know how to dress up and maintain her looks. Wen expected better from her. He always remembered that more than 20 years later, if that Fang Shui still maintained her looks like a 30-year-old woman, his mother could not lose to her. Of course, even if she did not maintain her looks, his mother would still be the most beautiful woman. If she only maintained her looks, wouldn't she crush her opponent even more? They thought that they were whispering, but in fact, it had already been recorded in the livestream. The audience also heard it and became even more excited. "My child, how can he be so cute? This is my child. Sob sob sob. Mama is so happy. I'm suffocated by his cuteness. I also want to have a son who will buy cosmetics for me. Please give me a dozen such sons. Thank you." Trying to trick me into having children again, Wen's basket was only left with 3 eggs. The first mission was considered completed. He wiped his sweat. It was really not easy. Then, he lifted the basket and showed it to Xiaoyu. "I've completed the mission." Xiaoyu gave him a thumbs up. Wen, you're awesome." Wen almost laughed out loud. Fortunately, she remembered that she had to maintain a stable image. She quickly pursed her lips, but her big eyes curved into crescents. Next, it was time to go to the second place. Wen also knew where the second uncle's house was. She led Xiaoyu through the alleys and small paths, then walked to the second uncle's house. He explained the purpose of his visit to the second uncle and especially emphasized that he only wanted 3 carrots. There was a harmless accident just now, but it definitely wouldn't happen this time. The second uncle was originally sitting on the doorstep smoking a pipe. When he saw Wen coming over, he smiled and put out the cigarette. "You want carrots? Sure, the vegetable garden is over there. You can pluck whichever one you like." "Thank you, second uncle." Wen gave an egg to the second uncle. Then, she entered the vegetable garden with Xiaoyu and found the carrots. The second uncle's house had already plucked a lot of carrots to eat. The carrot sprouts in the vegetable garden were slightly sparse. Xiaoyu was about to pluck the carrots. Wen sensibly said, "Uncle Yu, let me pluck them." Wen thought that since he was so sensible and considerate, the audience should like him very much, right? Xiaoyu raised his eyebrows, straightened his body, and nodded. "Okay." Wen looked around carefully and found 3 carrots that were obviously larger. Then, she stood in front of one of the carrots. She grabbed the sprouts with both hands and tried her best to pull them up. An orange-red carrot appeared in mid-air. Wen smiled happily and looked at Sai Yu. After receiving a look of approval, she excitedly plucked the second one. He plucked. Why isn't it moving? Wen plucked for a while. She used all her strength and her face turned red. Wen suddenly fell upside down. Her small body leaned back and she fell on her butt. Her 2 feet were facing the sky, and her hands were still holding onto the carrot that she had worked so hard to pluck. Chapter 54. Fut. Wen's little eyes were in a daze. He didn't realize what had happened for a long time. It was only when Sai Yu helped him up that he realized he had fallen. Wen's face turned red. He was so embarrassed. Wen looked up at Sai Yu with uncertainty. He seemed to have heard mocking laughter. Did he hear wrongly? Wen turned his head to look for Fu Yunruo's position and saw a familiar figure not far away, smiling at him. Sai Yu looked serious as he gently patted the dust off Wen's body. Are you hurt? Wen shook his head and explained seriously, it was an accident. I don't usually fall. It was just a small mistake. His image was still very mature. Yes, I believe you. Sai Yu nodded seriously. Wen heaved a sigh of relief. If Uncle Yu believed him, then the audience would believe him too. His image was saved. Which carrot do you want to pull? Let's do it together. Wen pointed at the carrot he wanted. He was afraid that he would lose his balance again, so he let Sai Yu pull it out. Second Uncle Yu walked over with his hands behind his back. When he saw that they had only pulled out 3 carrots, he said, pull out a few more. No one will eat them if they are left in the field. They will be old after a long time. As he spoke, he walked to the vegetable field and prepared to pull out more carrots. Wen's eyes widened. Uncle Yu. Sai Yu placed the 3 carrots neatly and scooped up Wen. He strode out with his long legs. Second Uncle Yu, we have something to do. We'll leave first. Wen hung in Sai Yu's arms with his butt facing forward and his head facing backward. He looked up and waved at Second Uncle Yu. Second Uncle Yu, I'll come and play with you when I'm free. After leaving Second Uncle Yu's house, they went to the pork shop in the village. Wen sat on Sai Yu's shoulder and said solemnly, what happened just now was an accident. It won't happen again. Yes, I believe you. Sai Yu's voice contained a hint of a smile. After walking for a while, Wen said, Uncle Yu, put me down. He had walked for a long time since the morning and his feet were tired. But as a mature and steady child, he couldn't let the adults get tired, so after a while, he had to get down from the ground and walk on his own. Sai Yu did not refuse and put Wen down. After walking for a while, a few children emerged from the alley. When they saw so many people around Wen, they shrank their necks. However, he still mustered up his courage and shouted at Wen, come quickly. Great-grandma will make cold cakes. The adults were worried that the children would disturb the filming of the show, so they repeatedly ordered them not to get close to Wen for 3 days. They had to wait for the strangers to leave before they could find Wen to play. In order to keep an eye on this group of naughty children, she specially invited the oldest woman in the village, who was 90 years old, to make her best cold cakes, which were the children's favorite. But were they the kind of people who ate alone? The children were kept in the village's great-grandmother's house, so they slipped out under the adults' watchful eyes to find Wen and ask him to hurry over. Great-grandma's cold cakes. Wen's ears perked up. Great-grandma was a cook in a rich family when she was young. She was good at making pastries, but now that she was older, she rarely made them. Although she was still eye-catching now, she was old after all. In recent years, she would only occasionally make the easiest cold cakes to make. Wen was lucky enough to eat 2 pieces last year. He could still remember the taste. No one else could make it that way. Great-grandma's cold cakes. Wen swallowed his saliva. His eyes sparkled as he ran happily to his friends. Sai Yu, who was suddenly forgotten. The children seemed to have forgotten that they were filming a show. The cameraman's assistant was laughing so hard that he almost passed out. The audience in the live broadcast room was also laughing like crazy. Sai Yu was so pitiful. He was abandoned, ha ha ha. Where did this clown come from? He was so funny. The cameraman chased after him. Wen had already mixed with his friends. They squatted in a row outside the great-grandmother's kitchen and anxiously looked inside. Wen's heart and eyes were occupied by the cold cakes. Like the other children, he swallowed his saliva from time to time. Wen had only eaten it once. Because it was so delicious, when he finished 2 pieces and wanted more, the great-grandmother had already distributed them. He didn't leave a piece for his mother. This was because he had been thinking about it for a long time. This time, he definitely wouldn't eat it alone. He wanted to share it with his mother. The cameraman didn't get too close, and Sai Yu didn't disturb him. Instead, he chatted with the audience in the live broadcast room. When a hunchbacked old woman walked out of the kitchen, she saw the children at the door and smiled kindly. Great-grandma made a lot this time. Everyone can have 3 pieces. Her granddaughter-in-law was helping in the kitchen. She was old and didn't know if she would have another chance to make pastries in the future. This time, she would make more and let the children eat more. Thank you, Great-grandma. Great-grandma has worked hard. The children were so happy that they jumped on the spot, thinking about how to eat. Wen was also thinking. If there were 3 pieces, he and his mother would each have half a piece. Divided 3 times, it would be equivalent to him and his mother eating 3 times. They would eat a lot and feel much better. He was really a quick-witted child. The children waited for half an hour and stood in a row to receive 3 pieces of cold cakes. He was the only one who received the biggest piece of cold cake. Wen was so happy that his eyes couldn't be seen. Then, he ran to Fu Yun Ruo with the cold cakes. Mom, delicious cold cakes. Fu Yun Ruo smiled. Yes, have you thanked Great-grandma? Yes. Wen took out a piece and stuffed it into Fu Yun Ruo's mouth. As he stuffed it, he swallowed his saliva. Mom, eat first. It's so delicious. Fu Yun Ruo didn't refuse to share with her child. She took a small bite. It's so delicious. Wen smiled and said happily, Mom, eat half. I'll eat the other half. Hence, Fu Yun Ruo took 2 small bites. Okay, Mom has eaten half. Wen looked at the large piece of pastry in his hand. His mother was coaxing him. He continued to hold it up. It's not half. Okay. It wasn't until Wen felt that his mother had eaten half that he leaned against Fu Yun Ruo and ate in satisfaction. This was the taste. It was too delicious. Wen finished the half piece in his hand and still wanted more. Do you still want to eat? Fu Yun Ruo asked. No, I'll eat it later, Wen Ruo said reluctantly. Good things should be enjoyed slowly. 3 pleasures were better than 1. Then Mom will keep it for you first. You can continue filming the program. Filming the program? Wen Ruo was thunderstruck. His small body froze. He suddenly remembered that he was filming a program earlier. Wen Ruo turned his head and looked around. He saw Sai Yu standing not far away. He had his arms crossed and was leaning against a tree trunk while looking at him. His expression seemed to say, let's see when you can remember. Noticing Wen Ruo's gaze, Sai Yu Ruo walked over with his long legs. Seeing this, Fu Yun Ruo stepped back to let them continue filming the program. Wen Ruo squatted down and looked down at the bare yellow ground. His small back view was bleak and extremely desolate. What's the matter? Sai Yu Ruo walked over and squatted down to ask. Wen Ruo's eyes were filled with tears. I want to be a smart and sensible child, but it failed. Wen Ruo thought about how after filming the program, things kept happening. He was very sad. This time, he could not attract any fans. How could he have forgotten about his character setting while doing it? The audience would definitely think that he was a gluttonous, lazy, and playful child. Sai Yu Ruo patted his head and comforted him. You're already very smart and sensible. 3 or 4-year-old children were at the peak of their energy. It was normal for them to not let go. They came up with ideas. It was normal for a goldfish to lose 3 seconds of memory occasionally. Uncle Yu, you don't have to comfort me. I'm very strong. Wen Ruo held back his tears. Uncle Yu was just comforting him. It was okay. It was only the first day. He still had 2 days to redeem his character. Lol, this program is actually called Movie King's Daily Life. Saiyu Ruo will definitely be a good father in the future. Ha 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 ha. Isn't this too unfair? We're both children. Why are you so cute? Fu-Yun Ruo looked at the scene and did not forget to enter the livestream to look at the comments on the screen. They were all fancy praises for Zai Zai and other normal comments. There was not a single negative comment. Her eyebrows relaxed. The situation was not as bad as she thought. Fu-Yun Ruo thought of the contract she signed with the program team. When Yuan Shin negotiated with the program team, he had clearly stated the program team's obligations. One of them was that there could not be any negative information about when in the livestream or the comments on the program team's official account. After all, the child was still too young. He could not bear the unwarranted abuse and malice at such a young age. Most of the audience were rational. They were mainly wary of Fang Shuiruo's group of brainless fans. As for the social media platforms outside the program team, Apple Entertainment's public relations department took action, and the marketing accounts all ceased their activities. Regardless of whether it was because of this reason or not, Fu-Yun Ruo would be quite happy if she did not see anyone talking bad about her child. She looked at Wen in the camera. She had to admit that he was born with a good sense for the camera. He really had no blind spots from 365 degrees and was very likable. When Fu-Yun Ruo saw that Wen was having a good time, she could not help but smile. She had never seen how others recorded a program before, but now that she saw it, wasn't it similar to playing? It seemed that the program team was quite humane. Previously, she did not like this program team because of Fang Shuiruo. She had misunderstood. Her phone vibrated. Fu-Yun Ruo looked down and saw that it was a call from Tian. She looked at Wen, who was talking to Sai Yu. She walked a little further away and picked up the call. Tian. Ruo, I've found a female bodyguard. Fu-Yun Ruo's eyes lit up. Really? That's great. There's only one, but don't worry. This is a really powerful person. You'll know when you see her. She definitely won't let you down. I'm on my way to your place. We'll meet tomorrow morning. Okay, thank you for your hard work. Fu-Yun Ruo looked at Sai Yu and could not help but touch her face. The hired bodyguard was coming. Sai Yu could leave successfully. Wen would not have any objections. But how should she bring it up? No matter how she said it, it felt like she was burning the bridge after crossing it. But the bodyguard would be coming tomorrow. If she stuck her head out, she would also be stabbed. Fu-Yun Ruo decided that she would find an opportunity to talk to Sai Yu about this at night. The program went smoothly. Although there were many small accidents, the overall situation was very good. At 5 o'clock in the afternoon, their group finished filming. Mom, how was my filming? Wen ran over happily, her little face glowing. Wen, you're awesome. You're so good. Fu-Yun Ruo praised. Wen was even happier when she heard that. She raised her head proudly. He hugged Fu-Yun Ruo's thigh and said coquettishly, Mom, hug me. Although he could see his mother when he looked up, he could not stay by her side. He felt that he had not been close to his mother for a long time. Fu-Yun Ruo carried Wen and walked home. Sai Yu was still talking to the program team. The mother and son left first. Although it looked like they were playing, it was still very tiring. Fu-Yun Ruo's heart ached for her child. Chapter 55. Wen was abnormally excited, chattering non-stop all the way, as if he had endless things to say. Fu-Yun Ruo kept watching. Listening to the person involved was another form of enjoyment. Hearing Meng's voice, her heart also softened. When they reached home, Wen was still following Fu-Yun Ruo around like a little tail. Fu-Yun Ruo gave him some water and then went to the kitchen to cook. Are you hungry? Do you want to eat a piece of cake? In the village, Fu-Yun Ruo was very assured of Wen. She took the time to go home, put the cold cake on a plate, and cooled it with cold water before returning the bowl to the grandmother's house. When Fu-Yun Ruo came to the grandmother's house, she was stuffed with a packet of cake wrapped in oil paper. Because the grandmother was old, The villagers would not disturb her because of this. If the children went, they would not say anything. Moreover, the children were also sensible. They would only swarm over when the grandmother took the initiative to make it. The adults did not have the fortune to eat it. No matter how much they made, the children would not be able to eat it. Fu Yunruo did not expect that she would have more. Fu Yunruo refused for a while but could not refuse. Thinking that Wen liked to eat it so much, she finally accepted it shamelessly. Fu Yunruo had not told Wen about this matter yet. Therefore, when Wen saw Fu Yunruo take out the plate and saw the 2 pieces of cake on it, she cherished it very much. Then, eat 1 piece first. The last piece was to be eaten before bed. Eating sweet cold cake before bed, she could have a good dream at night. Wen broke it into 2 halves and compared it. Then, he gave the big piece to Fu Yunruo. Mom. Fu Yunruo thought that there was still more and that the cold cake could not be kept for long, so she did not refuse. Eat the other piece too. Wen was reluctant, but he was hungry. The more he ate, the hungrier he got. Fu Yunruo said casually, "You have to share it with Uncle Yu." She thought that since Sai Yu treated Wen so well, it was only right for him to return the favor. However, Wen thought that Fu Yun was talking about sharing the piece in his hand. He was very reluctant. It was the last piece, and he had not eaten enough. He rolled his eyes. If he finished it before Uncle Yu came back, wouldn't there be no need to divide it? But Uncle Yu treated him so well, wouldn't he be too stingy if he didn't differentiate? Wen thought for a moment. He first broke it in half, then broke the other half in half. After thinking for a while, he broke off a small piece. The pastries on the plate were divided into several pieces of distinct sizes. Wen moved the smallest one to the side, and the rest belonged to him and his mother. This piece is for Uncle Yu. He pointed to a small piece on the side. If Fu Yun did not notice, she, who was picking vegetables, responded without raising her head when she heard Wen's voice. Sai Yu, who had just stepped into the house, paused. What did he hear? His gaze shifted to the pastry that Wen was pointing at. It was not even the size of a fingernail. When saw Sai Yu, he quickly retracted his hand and said cutely, "Uncle Yu, you're back." Fu Yunruo put the vegetables that she had chosen into the sink, looked up, and walked into the living room. She saw the plate in front of Wen. The pastries were crushed piece by piece. Thinking of what he said just now, she could not help but say, "You child, you crushed the pastries so much. How are we going to eat them?" Fu Yunruo took out the pastries wrapped in oil paper from the fridge. "Great-grandmother secretly gave us a packet and left a few pieces for you to eat tomorrow. The rest will be shared tonight." It was summer, and food could not be stored for too long. Otherwise, it would not be fresh. These were enough for Wen to satisfy his craving. When saw the oil paper packet, her eyes lit up. She jumped down from the stool and ran over. Wow! The temperature of the upper floor of the fridge was not very low. It was only used to preserve freshness. If Fu Yun removed the oil paper from the table for a while, the temperature would return to normal. Wen leaned on the table and counted. There were a total of 16 pieces. It was a lot. Wen moved the plate in front of her and pointed at the oil paper packet on the table. She said generously, "Uncle Yu, you can eat it. It's delicious." Sai Yu. Don't think that he did not know that he only had a small position in Wen's heart. He had seen through it. Sai Yu picked up a piece. Wen looked at him with sparkling eyes. "Is it delicious? Is it delicious?" Sai Yu was surprised. He had eaten countless delicacies since he was young. He did not expect to be able to eat such delicious and unique pastries in this mountainous area. It seemed that this mountainous area was full of hidden talents. Sai Yu nodded. Not bad. Wen looked as if he had been praised and raised his head proudly. Then, he ate the pastries on the plate in small bites. Dinner time was lively. Fu Yun saw that Wen's head was nodding like a chick pecking at rice not long after he finished eating. She carried him back to the room to sleep. Lying on the bed, Wen did not seem to be sleepy anymore. He rolled around on the bed. Fu Yun hugged him and took out her phone. Come, Mommy will read to you how the brothers, sisters, uncles, and aunties on the internet praise the baby. Wen stopped rolling and buried himself in Fu Yun's arms like an ostrich. After a while, he quietly revealed his eyes and asked carefully, "Are they all praises? Were they not scolding him?" Actually, it did not matter if he was scolded. He did not care at all. Wen knew that he did not perform well. He had not established his image yet. He was so clumsy. He could accept it. Fu Yun looked at Wen's expression and felt a little heartache. It seemed that Wen cared a lot about what others thought of him. Of course. Mommy took a lot of screenshots. They are all praises for the baby. Mommy will read it to you. Wen was bashful for a while. Then, he shifted his small body and leaned his head on Fu Yun's shoulder. He mustered his courage to look at the screen. Mommy took a lot of screenshots. Look, they are so dense that I can't see them clearly. Let's watch them together after the live broadcast is uploaded online. Then, Fu Yun read it to Wen and pointed it out to him. This comment. Zai is really smart, innocent, lively, and cute. Zai is a baby. And these. Many people want babies like Bao Bao. Fu Yun read a lot of comments. Then, she said, the baby hasn't started school yet. There are many words that he can't recognize. When the baby starts school, he will understand everyone's love for you. Wen's eyes stared at the phone screen. He did not say that he could understand it. He could not read all the comments, but he could see that they were all praises. There were even fewer comments about Sai Yu than there were about him. The straightforward and unreserved love seemed to pass through the screen and surround him. His heart felt warm. How nice. Wen's eyes were moist. Tears flowed out of the corners of his eyes. However, he was careful not to let Fu Yun see it. After a while, he said coquettishly, "Mommy, read it to me again." Okay. Fu Yun kept reading the comments. Her shoulders were heavy. She looked down and saw that Wen had fallen asleep leaning on her. His small hands were grabbing her clothes. He was very attached to her. His little chubby face was red and the corners of his lips were curled up. It was as if he was having a beautiful dream. Fu Yun kissed his forehead. "Good night, baby." Fu Yun waited for Wen to fall asleep before she carefully got up and walked out of the room. It was not even 10 o'clock yet. Sai Yu was still awake. Fu Yun walked out and saw Sai Yu sitting in the courtyard. He was typing on his phone with his head lowered. When he saw Fu Yun coming out, he put away his phone and lowered his voice. "Are you asleep?" Fu Yun nodded. She moved a chair and sat not far away from Sai Yu. She thought about what she wanted to say, but she found it hard to say it. Sai Yu saw that she was hesitating and took the initiative to ask, "What's the matter?" Fu Yun said hesitantly, "It's like this. Tian helped me find a female bodyguard. She said that she will be here tomorrow." Sai Yu nodded and said understandingly, "I will move out when the time comes. It's not very convenient for me to be here. But we have to wait until you see that there is no problem with the bodyguard." Fu Yun saw that he was so straightforward and did not seem to have any grudges. She heaved a sigh of relief. "Okay. After we meet tomorrow, thank you for taking care of Wen these days." "It's my pleasure. Then I won't disturb you." After chatting for a while, Fu Yun stood up and said goodbye. Sai Yu replied, "Good night." "Good night. You should rest early too." Fu Yun put down her worries and went to sleep without any burden. She had a good night's sleep. On the second day of filming, Wen seemed to have some experience and was more relaxed than yesterday. The production team looked at the high popularity and could not stop smiling. They had finally made the right move for once. At around 3 o'clock in the afternoon, Tian and the female bodyguard arrived. After Fu Yun asked Yuan Xin to watch over them, she went to receive the guests. Fu Yun looked at Tian and a baby-faced girl who was about 1.6 meters tall with short hair. Countless questions popped up in her heart. This was a female bodyguard? If she walked out and said that she was a minor who had just entered high school, people would believe her. Tian said, "Don't think that Shengnan is young just because she looks like this. You can't judge a book by its cover. She's 2 years older than you. And she's very impressive." Qian Shengnan patted her flat chest and said cheerfully, "Boss, it's right to have your concerns. Because of my face, many employers don't believe me. But please give me a chance to show off." She glanced around and picked up a stone by the flowerbed not far away. Then, she ran forward and leaped into the air. She spun around and kicked the stone that had fallen into the air with precision. The extremely hard stone shattered into a few pieces and fell to the ground, scattering in all directions. Fu Yun was stunned. Her first thought was that there were martial arts experts in this world. Qian Shengnan glanced at the eaves and picked up a thick piece of firewood. It seemed that she wanted to continue showing off. Fu Yun quickly stopped her. "No need. It's fine, it's fine." She couldn't help but look down at her feet. She hissed. Didn't it hurt to break such a hard stone? She was full of admiration. At this moment, she looked at Qian Shengnan with great respect. "Boss, you believe me?" Qian Shengnan asked happily. "You don't have to call me boss." Fu Yun waved her hand. Qian Shengnan was instantly disappointed. "Just call me Ruoruo or Yun Ruo." Qian Shengnan's eyes lit up. "You've agreed to hire me?" Fu Yun nodded and smiled. "Please take care of me in the future. I'll work hard." Qian Shengnan was overjoyed. Because her face made people feel insecure, her work had not been smooth. She didn't expect to succeed this time. The group went to the living room. Fu Yun told her about the benefits, but no matter what she said, Qian Shengnan nodded. This pure and harmless appearance made Fu Yun selectively forget about her martial prowess. Fu Yun thought to herself that such a simple-minded child would be bullied to death by an unscrupulous client. "You can stay by my side in the name of my assistant. Don't worry, the studio will give you an additional salary as an assistant." After all, this was a small place. If she explained to others that she was a bodyguard, others would think that she was a weirdo. It was much more convenient to have the identity of an assistant. When Qian Shengnan heard that, she actually had a double salary. She shook her head repeatedly. The treatment just now was already very good. It's enough. Her salary was paid by the studio. Her salary was already comparable to every job she had done before. There were also all kinds of insurance benefits. It was already very good. Fu Yun said, "You naturally have to receive double salary for doing two jobs. It just so happens that I also need an assistant. With you around, I don't have to look for one anymore." Just as Fu Yun finished speaking, she thought of something important. Then, she asked worriedly, "By the way, it can't be that every plant you raise will die, right?" In the past, she thought that there might not be 1 in 10,000 people who would die. But now, she had already met 2 people. What if there was another one? Qian Shengnan tilted her head. Although she didn't understand, she still said honestly, "I used to plant vegetables. They grew very well. When I was young, I participated in Arbor Day in school. The trees that I planted all came alive and were very lush." When Fu Yun heard that, she was relieved. If she could plant vegetables and trees, then she wouldn't be a plant killer. Chapter 56. There was still an empty room in the old house. The 3 of them cleaned it up together and quickly cleaned it up. In the morning, as a precaution, Fu Yun asked the villagers in town to help bring back 2 sets of mattresses and quilts. When they came back in the afternoon, they took advantage of Wen's afternoon nap to unpack and wash them. They could use them at night. Fu Yun considered that they were tired from the journey and wanted to let them rest at home, but they said that they were not tired. Tian Tian knew that Wen was filming a show and couldn't wait. "I haven't seen the little cutie in a long time." In the end, Fu Yun brought the 2 of them to the scene. On the way, they met a villager and saw 2 young and beautiful girls. He even asked Fu Yun curiously, Ruo, who are these 2? "They're my friends. They came here specially to see me." Fu Yun and the others greeted them along the way, then found the production crew and watched from afar. Fu Yun looked at Wen for a while. They were playing in the river in the village openly. The children were so happy that they were giggling like little ducks. She introduced Yuan Xin and the 2 of them to each other. Tian Tian had heard a little about Yuan Xin and originally respected him as a senior. However, because of Wen, The two of them felt like old friends at first sight and had a lot in common. They quickly improved their friendship and flattered when together. Qian Shengnan looked around warily. Fu Yun saw this and told her to relax. We're very safe in the village. We won't encounter any accidents. Actually, she found bodyguards to reassure herself and when they wouldn't encounter any danger in the village. No one would be so crazy. Moreover, that group of people only stayed in town for 2 days. They heard that there was an accident in one of the Fu Corporation's projects and he needed to personally deal with it, so they left in a hurry. News spread quickly in the town. They had only left for less than 10 minutes when this matter reached Fu Yun's ears. When she heard the news, she heaved a sigh of relief. Finally, she could have some peace for a while, so she didn't have to worry about them coming again. Qian Shengnan nodded and seemed to relax, but her eyes swept around from time to time. After the intermission, Wen ran over. There were still water droplets or sweat on his face. Fu Yun wiped them off for him. Wen remembered her mother's business partner and called out sweetly, "Sister Tian." She replied with a sweet smile, "Hello, Wen." Wen looked at the other beautiful big sister who had never seen the big boss before, her eyes were filled with confusion. Fu Yun introduced her to him. "This is Sister Qian Shengnan." Then she said in a low voice, "She's also our family's bodyguard. She's amazing." Wen's eyes darted around. After sizing her up for a while, she cutely called her sister Shengnan. Qian Shengnan was at a loss when she saw such a cute and clever child. She responded with a stiff expression. Yuan Shin took out a cute sky blue water bottle. "Come, Wen, have some water." A few adults surrounded Wen and completely ignored Sai Yu, who was walking over. Fu Yun inadvertently saw this and felt that with his status, he would be the center of attention wherever he went. At this moment, he was being ignored because of Wen. She felt quite embarrassed. Thus, she poured him a glass of water and handed him a packet of tissue to wipe his sweat. Then she especially softly explained Qian Shengnan's identity to Sai Yu. Sai Yu's expression was normal as he nodded to show that he understood. At night, the house was lively. Aunt Mai and Uncle Mai knew that Fu Yun would have guests over, so they specially slaughtered chickens and ducks. When Fu Yun returned in the evening, they cooked a sumptuous dinner together. Even Yuan Shin had dinner at the Fu family's house before leaving. Sai Yu packed his luggage and prepared to move to the Mai residence. Aunt Mai knew about Qian Shengnan's other identity and also knew that Sai Yu wouldn't be staying here anymore. Thus, she also packed her things and prepared to move home. Tian had just found out that Sai Yu was staying here and was shocked for a long time. She looked at Fu Yun and hesitated to speak. In the end, she couldn't hold it in and pulled Fu Yun out to have a private talk. "Why is Mr. Sai Yu staying at your house?" Fu Yun Ruo told Tian everything that had happened. Tian couldn't help but say, "Ruo, I don't want to nag at you, but you're really too careless. Aren't you afraid that he has ulterior motives?" Fu Yun laughed and said, "I know what you mean, but that's impossible. He's only fooling around on account of Wen. Moreover, Aunt Mai is also here." It wasn't that Fu Yun belittled herself. He was a famous and influential superstar with many beautiful women around him. Why would he fancy a woman who had a child out of wedlock? Moreover, she didn't feel that he was wooing her. She wasn't that slow, right? It was because Wen was loved by everyone that she indulged him in fooling around. "You're so outstanding. Those who dare to despise you are not worthy of you." Although that was what she said, it was undeniable that Sai Yu was more outstanding. There were many talented and beautiful women around him. No matter how good Fu Yun was, the fact that she had a child out of wedlock was enough to make many people hesitate and be prejudiced. But everyone in the entertainment industry knows that Mr. Sai Yu pays attention to his interactions with the opposite sex outside of acting. He doesn't have any ambiguous relationships. Tian's knowledge of Sai Yu was based on hearsay. However, he was indeed one of the few male celebrities in the industry who had a clean private life. This was the first time Tian knew that Sai Yu would take the initiative to stay under the same roof with a young and beautiful woman. She couldn't help but think about it. Wasn't Ruoruo confused by the situation? Fu Yun was also suspicious after hearing Tian Tian's words. Could it be that Sai Yu was really interested in her? But it didn't seem like it. She really didn't feel that he was wooing her. Or was his wooing so reserved? With this question in mind, Fu Yun and Tian Tian returned to the courtyard. Wen was talking to Sai Yu reluctantly. Wen couldn't bear to part with Sai Yu, but it was written in the agreement that she could only reluctantly send him off. Fu Yun saw that Sai Yu left so decisively and the suspicion that had just arisen dissipated. If Sai Yu really liked her, shouldn't he be thinking of ways to make her stay? As expected, Tian Tian was thinking too much. She was thinking, how could Mr. Yu like her? She was still thinking that if it was really her, how could she reject him without hurting him so much? She almost caused a misunderstanding. At night, Fu Yun read the comments on the bullet screen to Wen as usual to coax him to sleep. Suddenly, she realized that on the screen, there were many comments saying that Wen and Sai Yu looked alike. They were simply replicas of Sai Yu. They were just like little Sai Yu. Fu Yun had taken the screenshots casually today and didn't pay attention to the comments on the screen. Now that she noticed them, she suddenly felt as if she could see them everywhere. Fu Yun thought to herself, how did Wen look like Sai Yu? They were clearly replicas of her. Sai Yu had nothing to do with Wen. How could they look alike? Wen also saw such comments. He saw more than one person saying that he was little Sai Yu. He felt very nervous and uneasy. Could it be that he had unknowingly brought over the habits that he had learned in his previous life? In his previous life, to train his acting skills, he had looked for Sai Yu's movies and TV shows to imitate. Later on, to become famous, he had used the title of Little Sai Yu to become popular. He always knew that Sai Yu's fans didn't like people trying to ride on Sai Yu's popularity. The haters also used this to mock him. He looked at the comments nervously. In this life, he didn't want to ride on his popularity, but the audience was saying that he was a child's version of Sai Yu. Was it little Sai Yu? Wen felt very uncomfortable when he thought that the audience who had been so friendly to him might change their attitude. He saw that his mother was in a daze and didn't move for a long time. He took the initiative to swipe the screen. He thought that he would be mocked and scolded, but along the way, other than those who expressed their love for him and discussed the program, many people agreed with the title Little Sai Yu. Many people even used Little Sai Yu to make fun of him. He saw that the netizens' attitudes were completely different from his previous life. Wen started to doubt his life. Could it be that all the negative comments had been removed? Or did his mother only take screenshots of the positive comments? Fu Yun Ruo was affected by Tian Tian's words and felt a little embarrassed when she saw such comments. Children naturally liked to imitate adults. Sai Yu was one of the adults that Wen liked, so it was normal for her to unconsciously imitate his words and actions. Was that why the audience felt that they were similar? She continued to read the comments as if nothing had happened. Anyway, Wen didn't know many words, so she wouldn't know if she skipped them. Fang Shueruo sat in front of the computer and watched the live broadcast turn off. The screen darkened, and her eyes flickered. She went to the comments on the internet and saw that Fu Yun Ruo and her son's reputation had spread far and wide. Their fans had skyrocketed, and her fingers were pinched so hard that a few red marks appeared on them. She called her manager. Sister Wen, do you have any work to do recently? I'm a little bored at home, so I can take a walk. Ah! Sister Wen's eyelids twitched. She braced herself and said, there's a cosmetics company that wants you to endorse. Which company? Ayo. Fang Shueruo said casually. This was an internationally renowned cosmetics brand. Previously, her studio had contacted the person in charge of the Asian region, and the other party obviously had the same intention. No, it's Ori. Crack. Fang Shueruo broke a bamboo stick. What did you say? Sister Wen heard her cold voice and shuddered, but she still said, it's Ori. There was only a difference of one letter, but the difference between the two was like heaven and earth. Ori was a brand in the country, but it wasn't even considered a well-known brand. There was even a nasty incident where the use of its cosmetics caused disfigurement, and it was ordered to stop business. After that, it was rectified and reopened, but it was no longer trusted by the consumers in the market. How could such a nameless brand with a ruined reputation have the guts to ask her to endorse it? Fang Shueruo said coldly, Sister Wen, I asked you to be my manager because I trusted your ability. In the end, you can only find me such lousy endorsements. Sister Wen was miserable. Ever since Fang Shue's reputation collapsed, her days of flaunting her fame were over. Her artist was rejected by all the major brands, and those who cared about reputation were not willing to work with an artist who had a tainted reputation. Even if she had the face of Orange Entertainment, the Chang family, and the Fu family, it was useless. Which brand would take this risk? Unless she endorsed the brands under the Fu family and the Chang family, she could only get such lousy endorsements. She was afraid that these days would only come to an end after this storm completely passed. But Sister Wen didn't dare to say anything. She lowered her voice and said, I'll look again. Sister Wen hung up the phone, her face dark. Where was she going to find good resources? In the past, she didn't need to look for resources. Good resources were automatically sent to her door for her to choose. Now, not only were they rejected for endorsements and advertisements, but they were also rejected for good film and television series. Those who approached Fang Shueruo were third-rate film crews. They wanted to ride on Fang Shueruo's fame, even if they were blacklisted. If this continued for a long time, Fang Shueruo would be completely forgotten. Outdated artists in the entertainment industry were forgotten very quickly, unless Orange Entertainment was tailor-made for her. Chapter 57. 3 days of filming for the show passed very quickly. The production team had just finished filming and held a donation ceremony with the local government. After that, they had a special gathering for a meal. Fu Yunruo considered that Wen Wen was still young, so he only brought him to the scene before going back. Sai Yu sat for a while before leaving and sending them back to the village with the chauffeur. It was inevitably not safe to drive at night, so the speed was slower. Fu Yunruo heard that all the guests and staff of the production team would be leaving the village tomorrow, so he asked, Mr. Yu, are you leaving tomorrow morning too? With the production team? Fu Yunruo thought that since they were acquaintances, he would send Sai Yu off when he left. Wen Wen was originally very excited in the car because the director had already settled Wen Wen's appearance fee. Wen Wen had received his first bucket of gold. He held the card all the way and was so excited that his little face was flushed. After hearing Fu Yunruo's question, he instantly quieted down and couldn't help but look at Sai Yu. Uncle Yu, are you leaving? Wen Wen looked at him eagerly. Even though he knew the answer in his heart, he couldn't help but want to confirm it again. Sai Yu smiled. Wen Wen, can't bear to part with me. Wen Wen awkwardly turned his little head to the side. I can't bear to part with you. However, he couldn't help but glance at Sai Yu from the corner of his eyes. Little guy. Sai Yu's gaze was gentle as he answered their question. I'm not going with the production team. I'm going to stay for 2 more days. You won't not welcome me, right? Wen Wen visibly became happy. Fu Yunruo couldn't help but laugh. No. Wen Wen was very happy and couldn't wait for him to stay for a few more days. The car stopped by the roadside. Sai Yu sent Fu Yunruo and Wen Wen home before going to my family's house. Tian Tian and Qian Shengnan were surprised to see the two of them return so quickly, but they were very happy. Wen Wen, how was your trip? Were you happy? Happy. Wen Wen could not help but run in front of Fu Yun. She handed the card to Fu Yun and said reservedly, I'll buy you beautiful clothes and cosmetics. All the money he had earned was here. Yes, he could earn a lot more money in the future. Fu Yun was overjoyed. She hugged Wen Wen and kissed her twice. Wen Wen is so amazing. It's great that you can support your mother at such a young age. Wen Wen's little belly stuck out even more. He was grinning from ear to ear. He could earn money to support his mother. Tian Tian was extremely envious. She also wanted to give birth to such a sensible and considerate baby. If Fu Yun kept the bank card properly, this card would be used to store Wen Wen's money in the future. She could not bear to use it. If Fu Yun asked Yuan Xin to use the production team's name to donate a sum of money to the village, there was also a possibility. Tian Tian also made a trip with Yuan Xin and finally donated the money. Other than that, It was said that Sai Yu also donated a sum of money in his own name. He hoped that this sum of money would be put to good use. Fu Yun put down a load of worry and was in an extremely good mood. After Wen was happy, she suddenly sighed in disappointment. "What's wrong, baby?" Wen said dejectedly, "Uncle Yu is leaving too." Although he was 2 days late, he would still leave. They had not spent much time together, but he was a little reluctant to part. Thinking that they might not have the chance to meet in the future, he was a little sad. Fu Yun saw Wen like this and hugged him. Just as she was about to organize her words to comfort him, Wen perked up and said to Fu Yun, "Mom, let's go find Uncle Yu tomorrow and the day after." Okay. The next day, the production team left one after another. Fu Yun specially sent Xin Shu off and gave him some local specialties. Xin Shu left reluctantly and repeatedly emphasized that they must keep in touch. After that, Fu Yun worked in the flower bed while Wen and Sai Yu worked outside. The orchids they planted on the roof had already withered, but they did not know who would die first. Hence, the eldest brother did not laugh at the second brother and encouraged each other to plant another orchid. Fu Yun let them be and seriously taught Chen Shengnan to do some simple chores. Yuan Xin sat in the bungalow and calmly gave Tian some pointers on the studio's experience. At night, they returned to the village to spend the night. After 2 days, Sai Yu and Yuan Xin left. Fu Yun personally sent them off with Wen. Aunt Mai and Uncle Mai carried a lot of local specialties and even gave them 2 bags of grains. In a short while, the entire back of the car was filled. It was rare for Wen to be silent. She held Fu Yun's hand and kept her head down. Before getting into the car, Sai Yu walked in front of Wen and squatted down. Then, he said gently, Wen, aren't you going to say something to Uncle?" Wen lowered her head and looked at the ground but did not look at him. "Uncle is leaving." Sai Yu rubbed his little head. "Don't cry secretly." "I won't." Wen raised his head and retorted. He was already a mature child who could earn money. He would not cry secretly. Yes, Wen is a mature and steady little adult. When we come to the capital in the future, Uncle will take you to the amusement park to play. You said it. If I can't do it, then Uncle will be a puppy. Wen felt awkward for a while, then stretched out her pinky. "Pinky swear." "Yes, pinky swear." Sai Yu stood up and looked at Fu Yun, but did not say anything. He only said, "Take care." Fu Yun also replied, "Have a safe trip." No matter how reluctant she was, it was time to leave. Sai Yu hugged Wen and got into the car. Soon, the car started slowly and drove away. Wen looked up and saw the car gradually drive away. He instinctively wanted to chase after it, but he only moved a little and eventually stayed where he was. Fu Yun carried Wen and rubbed the back of his head. She said gently, Wen, if you're sad, just cry. Mommy is here." Wen hugged Fu Yun and held back his tears for a long time. In the end, he could not hold them back and simply burst into tears. He was actually a little sad, just a little sad. It was all because a child's body could not control his emotions. Fu Yun's heart ached when she heard this, but she also heaved a sigh of relief. It was better to be able to cry than to be sad. She did not know if it was the right choice not to stop Wen and Sai Yu from getting close. Sai Yu kept looking at the rearview mirror until the group of people behind him gradually became smaller and completely disappeared from his sight. He only looked away after a long time. Yuan Xin said, "If you really can't bear to part with her, why don't you say it openly? It's not time yet." Yuan Xin thought about it and understood what Sai Yu meant. He could not help but click his tongue. What a scheming man. Wasn't he worried that if he said it out loud, Fu Yun would be afraid that he wanted to snatch the child away, or even that she would not go to the capital and continue to stay in the small village to avoid him? He did not know if he should sympathize with Fu Yun if Sai Yu took a liking to Fu Yun or laugh at Sai Yu for putting in so much effort for a woman. Sai Yu closed his eyes and rested for a long time before saying softly, "Soon, Uncle Mai and Aunt Mai surrounded Wen and coaxed him." However, the more people coaxed, the more Wen cried. In the end, Fu Yun coaxed, "Don't cry. We will be going to the capital soon. When the time comes, we can go and play with Uncle Yu." Wen stopped crying and looked at Fu Yun with his red eyes. Ruoruo, have you decided? Aunt Mai asked happily. However, when she thought about how there would be fewer opportunities to meet Ruoruo and Wen after they left, her happiness turned into a strong reluctance. Uncle Mai said, it's good to go to the capital. Then, he entered the house with his hands behind his back. Aunt Mai sighed and said to Ruoruo, don't worry about that old man. It's a good thing that you are going to the big city to develop your career. We are all happy for you. Fu Yun nodded. She was actually not happy. It was good to stay here. There was no competition and the years were peaceful. There was too much reluctance here, but there was always a choice, even though making this decision made her very uncomfortable. Fu Yun looked at the little guy in her arms. She would have to stay outside for at least 10 or 20 years. When she could completely let go, she could return here. She just hoped that by then, things would not change. Fu Yun and Aunt Mai chatted for a long time before returning to the old house. Wen could not help but ask softly, Mom, are we going to the capital? I plan to. Wen could not help but jump for joy. Didn't that mean he could see Uncle Yu often? Fu Yun saw how happy he was and did not have the heart to tell him that even if they were in the same city, they might not be able to see each other. Wen was happy for a while, but then he thought, wouldn't he have to leave the village? Wouldn't he rarely see Grandpa Mai, Grandma Mai, and Grandpa Guo in the future? He would not be able to see his group of underlings anymore. Also, just thinking about it made him sad. The tears that had just fallen welled up. Wen cried even more sadly. He did not want to leave them. What's wrong? Fu Yun was confused when she heard Wen's sudden crying. Hadn't she already coaxed him? When Fu Yun asked why Wen was crying again, Wen, don't cry. Mom will bring you back for the new year every year during the winter holidays. You can even play with your friends then, Fu Yun coaxed for a long time. And we'll also bring Grandpa Guo with us. He'll come with us. Wen sobbed. Really? Yes, but if Grandpa Guo is unwilling to go with us, we'll have to rely on you. Wen wiped his tears and nodded. Yes, if Grandpa Guo was also with them, then he would be less sad. Tian brought a basin of warm water over and teased, come. Wipe the little Cribbabai's face. Wen hugged Fu Yun very embarrassedly and buried his face in it. It was so embarrassing. He actually cried again. Fu Yun looked at Tian with a smile. She knew that Wen cared about his reputation, but she still exposed him. Tian covered her mouth and snickered. Tian did not stay for 2 days and also left. The house was much quieter. Fortunately, Shengnan was still around. To prevent Wen from letting his imagination run wild, Fu Yun asked Shengnan to drive him back to the village to play with his friends every day and come back together at night. With her looking after the child, she felt more at ease. Originally, Fu Yun only told Tian about this matter and asked her to help look out for housing. Since she had already told Uncle Mai and Aunt Mai, Fu Yun also told Uncle Guo about her plans. Uncle Guo, will you go to the capital with me? Uncle Guo had been frowning. When he heard this, he said in a rough voice, it's so troublesome. I'm not going. If Fu Yun was mentally prepared, she knew that he would not agree so easily. Fu Yun said with a frown, Wen is about to start studying. The education resources in the big city are better for him. Actually, I don't want to go out either. I'm used to staying here. Moreover, there are those people in the capital. If I'm bullied, no one will help me. Uncle Guo understood who those people were. Hence, his frown deepened, but he still did not agree. Fu Yun did not expect to be able to convince Uncle Guo in a day or 2. Anyway, there was still half a year. She quickly skipped this topic and did not mention it. Fu Yun live-streamed continuously for a few days. Some time ago, because of Wen's participation in the show, her popularity had doubled, but her live-streaming time had decreased by a lot. Now, she live-streamed once a day in the morning and evening. It could be considered as compensation for her fans. Fu Yun had just left the live-stream when Tian called. Ruoruo, I found a very suitable house. Tian did not stop to introduce the location of the house, the environment of the community, and the surrounding facilities. Really? That's great, Tian. Thank you for your hard work. It's not hard at all. It's what I should do. Ruoruo, come and take a look when you're free. It's a rare opportunity. Although it's a second-hand house, it's still very new. If you miss it, it won't be easy to find a place that meets your requirements next time. Yes. I'll go over in the next 2 days. Tian, you have to help me keep it. Fu Yun was extremely happy when she saw the photo that Tian had taken. She had not seen it with her own eyes, but she liked it very much when she saw the photo. It was rare to find a house that she liked, and the price was also within her range of affordability. Fu Yun immediately checked the ticket and planned the route. When she ran here back then, she was in a daze the entire way. She did not remember how she got here at all. Now, it was as if it was her first time taking a ride. That night, Fu Yun told Wen and Chen Shengnan that she was going to the capital early the next morning. Originally, she had thought of going alone. After all, she was worried that Wen would not be able to adapt to the journey. However, Wen insisted on going with her. She cried and acted coquettishly. In the end, she had a headache and had no choice but to agree. Fortunately, Chen Shengnan was with her. Otherwise, she was not sure if she would dare to travel alone with her child. After a long journey, Fu Yun and the other two finally stepped onto the ground of the capital on the morning of the third day. Fu Yun Ruo felt that her feet were light as a feather when she stepped on the ground. Fu Yun Ruo carried Wen and Chen Shengnan as they walked along the crowd. Chen Shengnan was pushing a suitcase with a luggage bag on it. Wen fell asleep on Fu Yun Ruo's shoulder. As soon as they walked out of the exit, Tian, who had been waiting outside, came up to them. It's been a long journey. She quickly took Wen. Fu Yun Ruo was very tired, so she did not refuse. Wen had just changed her position and woke up very quickly. She opened her sleepy eyes and called out Sister Tian in a daze. Then, she could not fall asleep. The car is outside. Tian brought Fu Yun Ruo and the others to find their car. Fu Yun Ruo was happy when she saw that there was a children's chair in the middle of the back seat. Tian was really thoughtful. After getting into the car, Fu Yun Ruo took off her hat. Her face was not very similar to usual. She was neither young nor old and could be considered a celebrity. In order to avoid trouble on the way, she and Wen had disguised themselves. Only then did Fu Yun Ruo know that Chen Shengnan had superb makeup skills. After her makeup, she only looked 20% like her original appearance. When others saw her, they would only think that she looked a little familiar and would not think of her. If she had not sent the photo to Tian in advance, Tian would not have recognized her. Tian drove them out of the airport. Fu Yun Ruo looked at the traffic outside the window and the tall buildings. She was not used to such a bustling city. She wanted to see if it was different from what she remembered. The unique city landmarks were still there, but the details of the surrounding environment were a little different. It was not what she remembered. This was a city that was both familiar and unfamiliar at the same time. Not long after Wen got into the car, he quickly became energetic. He stretched his neck and wanted to look outside. He was extremely curious about the difference between the capital from 20 years ago and the future. Chapter 58. The red car stopped in a beautiful neighborhood. Tian drove them back to her place. She had bought a 2-bedroom house in the capital 2 years ago. It was not big, but it was enough for her to live alone. She had already tidied up the guest room. Fu Yun Ruo and Wen would stay in the guest room for the time being, while Chen Shengnan would stay with her. The house is a little small. Don't mind it. How can that be? Fu Yun Ruo observed for a while and praised, Did you design the structure of this house? It looks very warm and comfortable. Tian's house was decorated very warmly, and the design looked very classy. It did not look small at all. Looking at it made people feel comfortable, and they could see the beautiful scenery from the balcony. Although it was less than 90 square meters, she had struggled in the capital at a young age. She had a house and a car. Many people might not be able to achieve her achievements even after decades. It was very impressive. Tian smiled and said, How can I design? I hired a famous interior designer to help me design it. For this, she had spent a lot of money on design services, but for the sake of living comfortably, she gritted her teeth and spent it. Now, it seemed that the money was well spent. The bathroom is here. Tian Tian introduced it briefly. I bought a few sets of daily necessities. Make do with them. Fu Yunruo looked around. There were 4 sets of toothbrushes and cups on the sink. One of them was a set of sky blue children's tools. It was obvious that it was prepared for Wen. There were also a few brand new towels hanging on the bathroom wall. You guys take a shower first and rest for a while. I've made an appointment to see the house at 10 o'clock tomorrow morning. There's no rush. Tian Tian knew that they were very tired at the moment, so she let them take a shower and then sleep for a while. When they recovered, they would go out to eat to welcome them. She was physically and mentally exhausted every time she took a long-distance car ride, so she felt the same way. Fu Yunruo nodded and did not refuse. After 2 to 3 days of traveling, she was indeed very tired. Fu Yunruo helped Wen take a shower first, and then it was her turn. After taking a shower, she felt much more comfortable. It was as if all her fatigue had been washed away. Tian Tian was not idle either. She washed a lot of fruits and placed many delicious snacks on the coffee table in the living room. Wen sat on the sofa and looked at the TV screen hanging on the opposite wall. SpongeBob SquarePants was playing on it. On one hand, Wen felt that it was childish, but on the other hand, she was watching with great interest. Fu Yunruo's hair had just been blown dry. Her hair was thick and long, reaching her waist. She felt that it was rather inconvenient for her hair to be spread out in front of her chest, so she loosely tied up the end of her hair half a palm above her head. "Mom, this snack is delicious." Wen saw Fu Yun walking over and quickly shared it with her. Tian Tian poured a cup of warm water for Fu Yun and then sat down. This snack was brought back from abroad by a friend of mine. It is said that it is a very famous local pastry. Because she knew that Fu Yun and the others were coming over, she couldn't bear to eat them. Wen hurriedly gave Sister Tian Tian a piece. "Sister Tian Tian, have some." Tian Tian smiled instantly. Wen was really sensible. "You don't have to specially entertain us. You're too polite." Tian Tian smiled and said, "I'm not being polite. It's rare for you to come to my house as a guest. I'm extremely happy. When I go to your house, you make delicious food for me every day. When I come back, I weigh it and I've already gained 3 kilograms. This time, I have to feed you until you gain 3 kilograms to be fair." Tian Tian looked as if she could finally take revenge, which made Fu Yunruo laugh. They ate some fruits and snacks to fill their stomachs as they chatted. Not long after, Fu Yunruo took Wen to sleep. They slept until 5 o'clock. When they woke up, they felt refreshed and no longer felt dizzy. Then, Tian Tian drove Fu Yunruo to dinner. "I know a restaurant. The food is very delicious. I'll bring you guys to try it. You guys will definitely like it." Fu Yunruo nodded. "Yes, we're looking forward to it." Tian Tian brought Fu Yunruo to a private restaurant opened by an insider. It was more private. The 4 of them sat in a small private room. Tian Tian was obviously a regular here. She skillfully ordered a few signature dishes and then asked them to see if there was anything else they wanted to eat. Fu Yunruo looked at Wen. He was sitting on a children's chair that was specially moved in the restaurant. His 2 short legs were dangling in the air. "Can these children eat it? Are there children's meals?" "No, they're fine. These aren't heavy. Some of them are quite popular with children." Fu Yunruo saw that they had ordered a lot of sweets, but they didn't order any of the dishes that they couldn't eat, so she said, "That's it." While waiting for the dishes, Tian Tian and the others chatted casually. "This is a restaurant opened by a food broadcaster on our platform. It hasn't been announced to the public. This broadcaster had a lot of fans. He liked to eat and cook, so he opened this restaurant. He basically stayed here. In order to prevent fans from disturbing him, he didn't announce it to the public. Of course, he opened a lot of chain restaurants under his name. Fans would go to those restaurants to check in. How many days can you guys stay in the capital this time?" Tian Tian hoped that if Fu Yun could settle the house this time and there wouldn't be any accidents. If they were all in the capital, it would be easier to meet in the future. If things go well, about 10 days. It was rare for them to come here. She was prepared to bring Wen out to play and broaden her horizons. It would be even better if they could rent the flower beds. Since she was already here, she couldn't keep troubling Tian Tian to run around. Only 10 days. That's too rushed. Doesn't Wen only start school in September? Why don't you go back at the end of August? It depends. Fu Yun Ruo didn't insist. Not long after, there was a knock on the door of the private room. Then, a group of people served the dishes. Tian Tian saw the fatty in chef's clothes walking in front and stood up in surprise. "Brother Fatty, why are you here?" Fatty chuckled and said, "It's rare for my peers to come and support me. Of course, I have to personally entertain you. Hello, Miss Yun Yun. I've heard a lot about you." "Hello." Fu Yun Ruo stood up and shook hands with him. "If you don't mind, you can call me Brother Fatty." "Brother Fatty." Fu Yun Ruo didn't hesitate and called out generously, "Sister Yun." Brother Fatty chuckled and said, Wen is also here. I specially stewed a fresh egg soup. I hope you like it." This fresh egg soup was not on the menu of the restaurant. His son liked to eat this very much. He only made it at home. "Thank you, uncle." Wen thanked him politely. Fu Yun Ruo thanked him, "Thank you for your trouble. Let's add each other on WeChat. We can be considered colleagues. In the future, when you come to the capital to develop, let's keep in touch." Fu Yun Ruo didn't refuse. "I won't disturb you anymore. Enjoy your meal." Fatty didn't stay for long. The dishes they ordered were served very quickly. Fu Yun Ruo and the others began to eat. Tian Tian said, "Brother Fatty Ruo is quite a good person. He's loyal to his friends and has a gentle temper. When she worked at the platform company in the past, she didn't have much experience and couldn't come into contact with famous streamers. Later, she came to this restaurant by chance and learned that she was an employee of the platform company. She even gave her a 50% discount and spoke to her in a very friendly manner. She didn't put on any airs at all." Fu Yun Ruo nodded. "If we want to develop here in the future, it's good to know more people in the same circle. After all, one more friend meant one more network." In the past, Fu Yun Ruo had been broadcasting in the mountain village and didn't show her face. She didn't have a deep relationship with the other big streamers on the platform. Now that she was in the capital, she naturally had to integrate into the capital's circle. However, now was the time to enjoy delicious food, so Tian Tian didn't talk much about work. Fu Yun Ruo took the first bite and her eyes lit up. As expected of a famous food streamer, the taste was superb. Wen also liked it very much. He took a bite of the stewed egg. It was fresh, tender, smooth, and melted in his mouth. It was the best he had ever eaten. Wen immediately scooped a spoonful and tried her best to stretch out her chubby little hand to Fu Yun Ruo's mouth. "Mommy, eat." Fu Yun Ruo leaned over and finished eating. "It's so delicious." Wen was happy. After the lively meal, Fu Yun Ruo went to pay the bill and was told that the boss had waived the bill. She was quite embarrassed that he had treated her to a meal when they had just met. However, it was the busiest time in the restaurant. The boss was busy in the kitchen. Fu Yun Ruo didn't want to disturb him at this time, so she transferred the money over to the WeChat account she had just added and then praised the food. Indeed, they all liked it very much. The 3 women and 1 child ate all the food on the table. All of them were full. After taking the car back, they didn't go up immediately. Instead, they strolled around the neighborhood for about an hour before going back. At 10:30 p.m., Brother Fatty sent a message. He said a lot, saying that she was being too polite by giving him money, and then refused to accept it. Fu Yun Ruo replied for a while, but in the end, she said that she couldn't win. "Brother Fatty, are you trying to chase us away? I don't dare to go next time. Feel free to come. There won't be a waiver next time. I'll give you a 50% discount. I'll do the same for my other friends." Seeing this, Fu Yun Ruo didn't say anything. Not long after, Fatty pulled Fu Yun Ruo into a group. There were only 13 people. As soon as she entered, many messages jumped out in the group. Fatty, the person you want to see is here. Dao Tai, we've been friends for a long time. Lark, welcome, welcome. Fu Yun Ruo sent a message out, and it became even more lively. Fu Yun Ruo read their self-introductions. They were all well-known streamers on the platform. Some had already retired, and some were still active. Basically, they were all big streamers with tens of millions of fans. Lark, why did Yun Yun go to the capital? Come to my great Shanghai. We can play together. Dao Tai, Yun Yun is originally from the capital. Why don't you go to your place? CS, actually, it's good to come to my place. Why don't you consider it? Fu Yun Ruo saw that their nicknames were more appropriate for her live broadcast content, so she also gave herself a nickname, Orchid. Then, she thanked them for their kindness and said that she would consider it. If she needed help, she would definitely ask them for help. Among the 13 people, 7 of them had already retired or semi-retired. Only 6 of them, including her, were popular anchors on the platform. They were scattered all over the country, and 3 of them even lived abroad. There were only 4 of them, including her, who were in the capital. Some people were also raising plants at this time. They just happened to have questions to ask her, and the others also sent a few pictures over. Fu Yun Ruo didn't expect that so many people were also raising flowers, and many of them were raising orchids. When it came to her profession, she had a lot to say. In the end, she found out that many of them fell into the pit after watching the pictures she took in the videos she made. In addition, they had time and space, so they bought a few pots of orchids to raise. As a result, the orchids they raised were not like that at all. They always felt that they were not as spiritual as Fu Yun Ruo's. In fact, they all admired Fu Yun Ruo very much. Just like the photos taken by the top photographers, the paintings drawn by the best painters, and the songs composed by the most famous musicians. They all had one thing in common, which was to inject soul into their works, so that people could resonate with them and feel the joy, anger, sorrow, and joy expressed in their works. The flowers raised by Fu Yun Ruo were like this. Perhaps it was because she poured all her energy and effort into them with love, so her flowers made people feel warm and happy when they looked at them. After Fu Yun Ruo became famous, she set off a craze for cloud plant cultivation. Many people wanted to copy her success, but no one did it like her. Some people's success was not accidental, but inevitable. Unknowingly, they chatted until midnight. Fu Yun Ruo rarely slept so late, and at this moment, she could not bear it anymore. After saying goodnight, she turned off her phone and fell asleep as soon as she closed her eyes. The next day, Tian Tian brought them to look at the house and said, "Other than this house, I've looked at a few other houses, and they basically meet your requirements. But I think this one is the best, but if you don't like it, we can look at other houses." Although she said that, Tian Tian actually hoped that she could directly decide on that villa. Because it was really too good. If she had the money, she would definitely buy it without hesitation. Compared to this house, the other houses had no advantage at all. The car stopped at the entrance of a very high-end neighborhood. A middle-aged man in a suit was already standing at the door. "Miss Tian, you're here." "Hello, Mr. Mo, sorry to keep you waiting. This is Miss Fu who wants to buy a house." "Hello, it's an honor to serve you." The few of them exchanged a few pleasantries, and the car quickly drove in. The entrance and exit of the neighborhood was very strict. Non-residents had to register, and only guests of the owner of the neighborhood were allowed to enter. This Mr. Mo was the agent of the owner who wanted to sell the house, so with him leading the way, they could only enter the neighborhood after registering. In Fu Yun Ruo's eyes, such a strict inspection gave her a good first impression. With such strict security, she did not have to worry too much about the child's safety. The neighborhood's greenery was done very well, and there were not many people walking around at this time. Moreover, she observed that the neighborhood was separated by people and cars. After the car drove into the neighborhood, they drove for a while before arriving at the house they wanted to see. This was a villa. There was a certain distance between each villa, but it was not too far apart. It allowed the residents to protect their privacy, but it was not to the extent that they did not have any contact with their neighbors. The 2.5-story villa had a garden, and the environment was beautiful. There were many places for children to play. Moreover, they were considered half-famous people, and they lived in such a private place. They were not worried about being disturbed. She was so lucky. Although it was not in the most prosperous circle in the capital, it was not far from the center. It was a quiet villa district with good security, and it was said that many famous people lived here. The price of this villa was not cheap. As the owner had settled down overseas, he had to deal with his domestic assets and was in a hurry to cash out, so the price was very cheap. If the owner did not know the boss of the platform and knew that she was looking for a house, so he contacted Tian and asked her to see if it was suitable, she would not have had this good opportunity. Fu Yunruo liked it when she saw the photo, but now that she saw it with her own eyes, she liked it even more. The renovation style was not fancy at all. It was simple and elegant. She did not need to modify it at all. 80% of the new expensive furniture came with the house, and it was completely free. There was even a small garden in the courtyard. The security guards in the neighborhood were said to be retired soldiers, so their safety was guaranteed. 5 kilometers away from the neighborhood, there was a kindergarten to middle school campus. She had checked. This school was top-notch in all aspects, and it completely met Fu Yunruo's needs. Moreover, the owner gave her a very discounted price because she was a friend of a friend. The only requirement was that she had to pay in full. Fu Yunruo's savings were just enough to buy a house, so she would have to live frugally for a period of time. Fu Yunruo originally wanted to buy a smaller house first. That way, she would use most of her money to rent a piece of land and build a new flower garden. If she bought this house with her money, her savings would basically be emptied. She would not be able to rent a piece of land and build a new flower garden. However, if she missed this opportunity, she might not have such a good opportunity in the future. Actually, if she lived in this villa, it would not be empty or deserted. After all, she wanted to bring Uncle Guo and Qian Shengnan here too. With 3 adults and a child here, it would not be deserted at all. She looked at this house and felt that it was very good. Wen ran up and down from the first floor to the second floor. He also liked this house very much. The best house he had lived in his previous life was not as good as this one. However, he knew that with his family's savings, it was still a little difficult. Fu Yunruo asked the members of the family, Wen, do you like this place? Wen hesitated for a moment, but still nodded. He thought to himself that this price was already very cheap to be able to buy a villa here. In 20 years, the housing price would be 10 times the current price. Buying it now could be considered an investment. He did not know if he could ask Uncle Yuan if he had a job. He could go and earn money. Tian did not want Fu Yunruo to miss this opportunity. Ruo, if you don't have enough, I still have some savings here. However, she could not borrow much. After all, she had also bought a house and was paying off the loan. The pressure was greater. Fu Yunruo said, thank you, but there's no need. I have it. Seeing that Wen was looking at her expectantly, the other 2 people also nervously watched her make a decision. Fu Yunruo gritted her teeth and bought it. Chapter 59. Perhaps the employer was in a hurry, so the procedures were completed very quickly. As soon as Fu Yunruo agreed, Mr. Mo brought her around for 3 days to complete all the procedures. Fu Yunruo's savings were basically emptied and exchanged for a light property certificate. Although she was back to square one, Fu Yunruo's heart suddenly felt at ease when she looked at this small book. This was a house that completely belonged to her. This was her and Wen's home. Although the old house in Shenghe village and the house in the flowerbed were where she lived and she treated them as her home, they were not her house after all. This book made her heart feel at ease. Wen Ruo was also very happy. To be able to buy such a villa in the capital where every inch of land was worth an inch of gold. It was not easy. Mom, you're so awesome. Wen Ruo is also awesome. After buying it, this house was completely hers. The previous owner's things had already been moved away, so they could even move in directly. However, Fu Yunruo was not in a hurry to move in because she did not have the money to renovate and buy new furniture. She liked the renovation style very much. There was no need to make any major changes, but the bedside cabinets and wardrobes in the room had to be changed. The room she was going to sleep in had a bed that someone else had slept in, so it was not very good. Therefore, the furniture outside did not matter, but everything in the room had to be changed. Moreover, when Ruo was getting bigger and needed a separate room, which also needed to be renovated. After that, Fu-Yun Ruo brought Wen Ruo to the studio. This was the first time Fu-Yun Ruo saw the members of her studio. There were not many people, but Tian had good taste and the people she picked were all very outstanding. They liked and respected Fu-Yun Ruo and Wen from the bottom of their hearts. Fu-Yun Ruo also realized that a few of them were Wen's papa and Mema fans. When Kai Wei-cheng knew that Fu-Yun Ruo and her son had come to the capital, he quickly ran over to meet them and even scolded them. "Why didn't you tell me that you came to the capital?" If he was not well informed, Kai Wei-cheng Ruo would not have known that they had left. Fu-Yun Ruo smiled and said, "We will leave after a few days. Wouldn't it be troublesome for you if I had to tell you? We're family, what's there to be troublesome?" This was his teacher's favorite junior. If he did not take good care of her, his teacher would not let him enter the door next time. When Kai Wei-cheng Ruo and Wen, he asked where they were going. "We're going to the suburbs to look at a place." Ruo Wen Fu. As for Wen, the little girl was not willing to let others take her to play. She was determined to follow Fu-Yun Ruo. There was no other way but to take her along. What Uncle Guo can't bear to part with the most are those precious orchids. "I'll build a new flower garden here. Uncle Guo will just change the place to grow flowers. He should be willing to come." This was Fu-Yun Ruo's true thoughts. On one hand, she wanted to have her own career. On the other hand, if she wanted Uncle Guo to follow her to the capital, she had to solve his worries. Then, she could act coquettishly and beg him. She did not believe that his attitude would not soften. When Kai Wei-cheng heard Fu-Yun Ruo's plan, his eyes lit up. "Will teacher be willing to come?" They had coaxed their teacher for a long time, but he was not willing to come out. Would he really change his mind? "I'll try to get him to agree." Fu-Yun Ruo did not have much confidence. If Uncle Guo was still unwilling in the end, then she could only try her best to bring Wen back to see him every year. "It's not that I want to criticize you, Yun Ruo, but aren't you treating us as outsiders? If you want to talk about where to transfer the flower garden or a suitable place, the seniors and juniors in this industry have the most connections." Fu-Yun Ruo could only smile. "I'll ask Tian for help." Tian was her manager and a good sister. It was only right to ask her for help. She did not have the personality to cause trouble for others. In the end, Kai Wei-cheng went with them to look at the place. Unfortunately, the results were not satisfactory. Not to mention that it was far from the house they bought, the place was not as big as Fu-Yun Ruo wanted. They could only return in disappointment. "It's okay. I've already contacted the seniors and asked them to help you ask if there are any suitable places. Then I'll have to trouble brother Kai actually." Fu-Yun Ruo did not have the money to rent a place, but since she was here, she might as well understand the market. If she was really so lucky, she could use that house as collateral to get a loan from the bank. Moreover, she still had a job and could continue to earn money. She had just accepted an endorsement job a few days ago. A client came to her door and asked her to represent a clothing brand that was close to the people. Yishong was a domestic brand. It was famous for its high quality, comfort, and simple and fashionable design. However, as everyone knew, foreign brands were more popular in the country. Fu-Yun Ruo was a loyal fan of this brand. The price was not as expensive as the foreign brands, but the comfort and style were not inferior. It was probably because she was wearing the Yishong brand when she showed her face recently, so the person in charge of the brand looked for her to endorse. Fu-Yun Ruo agreed without much consideration. However, she had just signed the contract and had not officially started the promotion. Soon, the endorsement fees would be transferred to her account. When that time came, she would not be so tight on money. Fu-Yun Ruo and the others did not stay in the capital for long before they returned to Shanghe village. This time, they did not see Sai Yu and Yuan Xin in the capital. However, the internet was full of news about Sai Yu. His support videos were displayed on the big screens in the big city squares. One of his movies was nominated for the Triennial International Film Festival. He was brought abroad by the director to promote the movie. After Fu Yunruo told Wen about this, he was sensible enough not to make a fuss about wanting to see Sai Yu. The journey back took almost 3 days. The main reason was that there was no direct bus and they had to take turns. After they got off the plane, they had to take a few buses. It would be more convenient if they had a car. It would be great if there was an airport near the village or even in the city. When they reached home, they were all exhausted. Not long after, people in the village came in and out. Everyone was curious to ask if Ruo was really leaving. Actually, the villagers knew that Ruo and her son would leave this small village sooner or later. However, when the day came, everyone was quite reluctant to part with them. After interacting with each other for a few years, they all treated Fu Yunruo and her son as villagers. Moreover, they had watched Wen grow from a newborn monkey to such an adorable child. When they thought about how they would not have such a fair and adorable child calling them uncle and aunt in a childish voice in the future, they were even more reluctant to part with them. When the children heard the news, it was like a bolt from the blue. They could not believe it. There Wen was going to leave the village and go somewhere far, far away. They all surrounded Fu Yunruo's courtyard and looked at Wen eagerly. If Fu Yun did not care about this group of children, she believed that Wen would be able to appease his little friends. The packages sent from the capital had also arrived and were piled up in the living room. Fu Yunruo and Qian Shengnan opened the packages together and separated the gifts. After Fu Yunruo bought the house, she did not have any cash on hand. The remaining money was not enough to buy gifts for the villagers. Recently, with Wen's consent, she finally used the money that Wen earned. She gave everyone in the village, including the cats and dogs, a gift as a way of thanking them for taking care of her and her son all these years. The days passed peacefully. Fu Yunruo lived a normal life, and Wen played with his little friends as much as possible. At the end of August, Wen heard Fu Yunruo's idea and was immediately struck by lightning. Go to kindergarten? Wen had already heard from Fu Yunruo that he should go to school more than once, but he had never seen her take action, so he did not take it to heart. Wen's eyes darted around, and then he said softly, I don't want to go to kindergarten. I want to spend more time with Grandpa Mai and Grandma Mai, as well as Zhuang and the rest. Wen grabbed Fu Yunruo's hand and shook it coquettishly. Mommy, okay? Wen thought to himself that he would not go to such a childish kindergarten with a little brat. With his knowledge, he could at least go to the 5th grade of primary school. Mommy, I'm still young. I'm still a baby. Fu Yunruo was amused. Then, she straightened her face and said seriously, didn't you call yourself a little adult? You're already a 4-year-old baby. It's time for you to go to kindergarten. Wen said, I'm not 4 years old yet. I'm still 6 months away. He raised his 6 chubby little fingers seriously. Little smart boy. Fu Yunruo did not say whether she agreed or not. She did not expect Wen to learn anything in kindergarten. Her original intention was to let him get used to it for a semester first. He might be more used to it after he went to kindergarten in the capital. Since he rejected it and did not want to go, Fu Yunruo did not force him. After all, he was still too young. He should be more sensible after the new year. Moreover, Wen's words softened her heart. Not to mention him, even she herself basically returned to the village every day to live and rushed to the flower garden the next day. Fu Yunruo went to chat with Aunt Mai at night. She noticed that Uncle Mai left early and returned late all day. When he came back, he was all smiles. Fu Yunruo asked curiously, is something good happening? It should be some policy from the higher-ups. The old man is so mysterious all day. That donation? Fu Yunruo immediately thought of this. Otherwise, why would Uncle Guo go out for meetings all day? I think so. However, Fu Yunruo and Aunt Mai guessed wrong. It turned out that an inspection team had taken a fancy to the beautiful mountains, clear waters, and good air here. They wanted to invest in building a retirement resort here. This district was not small. It covered at least the area of a few towns. This investment was not small. It had alarmed the higher-ups. It could be said that this was a charitable investment that did not care about returns. If it was successful in the end, it could be said that it would spur the development of the local brokerage firm. The local leadership had been worrying about how to develop the economy so that the local residents could escape poverty. However, the geographical location of some places was really not good. They were far away from the city and lived in the mountains. Transportation was not convenient, and there were no energy resources to attract investment. This time, it was one of the top financial groups in the world whose main forces were overseas that had invested a lot to repay the country. Naturally, the higher-ups gave the green light. The higher-ups also decided to build an airport here to cooperate with the development of this place into a future tourist resort. This was a great thing for the local residents. Ever since the news came out, the price of the land here had been rising. The villagers' favorite thing to do now was to gather together and discuss when they had nothing to do. They had lived here for their entire lives, and only then did they know that they lived in a place with good feng shui. When they heard the outside world praising this place for being so good, they all felt honored. Fu Yunruo was also very happy. If an airport was really built in the future, it would be convenient for them to travel back and forth. Everyone would also be better off. Chapter 60. The Spring Festival had just ended, and the aftertaste of the Spring Festival had yet to dissipate. Fu Yunruo, Wen, Uncle Guo, and Qian Shengnan had already stepped onto the soil of the capital. Be careful. If you break my flowers, you won't be able to afford it even if you sell yourself. Uncle Guo stood in front of the entrance of a flowerbed with his hands on his hips. He was in high spirits. When he saw a porter with rough hands and feet, he frowned. The employees carefully moved the utensils. Fu Yunruo comforted them softly inside and directed them where to place the things. In the chaotic environment, a childish voice was giving out orders in a serious manner. A chubby girl dressed in round clothes stood on a chair at the side. Her entire body was wrapped tightly, and she wore a furry hat on her head, which made her look even cuter. The weather in the capital was extremely cold. The snow outside had not melted yet, and white mist would come out when one breathed out. However, everyone was busy at the moment, so they did not feel cold. These employees who were hired to move expensive flowers and plants were also happily listening to Wen's instructions. Fu Yunruo occasionally glanced at him. As long as Wen stood in a conspicuous place obediently and did not run around, Fu Yunruo did not care whether he caused trouble or not. Seeing that Wen was so energetic at the moment, her heart relaxed a little. When they left, almost the entire village came to send them off. There were dozens of children of all ages, and their cries were earth-shattering. They could not bear to let Wen go. Wen had been mentally preparing for half a year. She originally thought that she would not cry childishly on this day, but in the end, she cried as softly as the other children. Her tears were worthless. Fu Yunruo was also crying sadly at first. Later, she was busy coaxing the child and forgot about the sadness of parting. Her ears seemed to still be ringing with the sound of the endless cries. Kai Wei-cheng had helped her find this flowerbed. She did not expect Kai Wei-cheng to be so attentive. In October, he suddenly called her to tell her that he had found 3 places that met the requirements and asked her to come to the capital to take a look when she was free. She hurried over and finally chose a large flowerbed between the 3. It was a 40-minute drive from the villa. This piece of land was originally used to grow and sell flowers, but it was not well managed, so they wanted to sell it. The transfer fee and all the potted plants in the flowerbed were not cheap. In the end, under the company of Kai Wei-cheng, she got a loan from the bank and took it over. She even signed a 10-year lease. After the 2 most important matters in the imperial capital were settled, Fu Yunruo and Wen recited scriptures in front of Uncle Guo all day long until he was impatient. He agreed in a gruff voice. If Fu Yun decided to leave together after the new year, she would have to take care of both sides. Tian personally watched over the renovation of the house and the rearrangement of the flowerbeds and sent videos to her every day. Occasionally, She would travel thousands of miles to personally direct them. She was still worried about Lan Kao and her child. She wanted to spend more time with Aunt Mai and the others. She ran back and forth a few times in a short period of time. She had visibly lost weight, but her eyes were brighter and more energetic. Every time she came back, Aunt Mai would make a lot of food for her to eat, but she could not make up for it. She would even scold her for working so hard. Fu Yunruo did not expect it to be so rushed. She thought that she could take it slow in half a year. She did not expect that it would be a little difficult to do it in half a year. If it were not for the help of the entire studio and Kai Wei Cheng occasionally helping, she would not be able to handle it. But it was all in the past now. The group of them left the village. At the same time, the Lan Cow in Uncle Guo's flowerbed also left. The precious Lan Cow was delicate. Uncle Guo called a team of professionals to transport it. They took the special route and arrived in the imperial capital at the same time as them. After arriving, they did not even go to the villa. They directly came to the flowerbed to settle the Lan Cow first. Kai Wei Cheng came to help eagerly. Yunruo, thank you so much. Kai Wei Cheng looked at the energetic teacher at the door and said softly. The teacher had no children in his life. His students had always wanted to bring the teacher out and take care of him in his old age. But the teacher was stubborn. He had always stayed in his hometown and refused to come out. His hometown was remote and inconvenient. They could not leave their work in the city and could only take turns to visit him. But now, it was all good. Everyone was in the imperial capital. Even if some were not in the imperial capital, it was convenient for them to visit the teacher. They were very grateful to Fu Yunruo. Therefore, even if they were in their 40s and were elites in their respective industries, they still happily helped to transport the Lan Cow even if they were being scolded. It's my duty. Fu Yunruo felt that this was her responsibility and obligation. She did not feel that she needed to be thanked. I said the wrong thing. Kai Wei Cheng smiled. Little junior sister, don't be angry. Uncle Guo saw that Kai Wei Cheng was actually slacking off and immediately shouted, What are you chattering about? Can't you see that we are busy? Coming. Kai Wei Cheng quickly walked over. Fu Yunruo smiled and continued to help to arrange the Lan Cow. Although there were many things and it was messy, there was strength in numbers. 2 hours later, the empty and desolate flowerbed was orderly and full of vitality. The flowerbed was much bigger than the one in her hometown. The flowerbed was separated into 2 parts. One part was private property and no one was allowed to enter or leave. The other part was open to the public. After all, the annual rent in the imperial capital was not cheap. She had to develop other businesses. Since they were raising flowers, they could sell them or contract some flower rental business. There were 2 sets of security systems installed in the flowerbed. One was at the outermost part and the other was at the inner part of the flowerbed. The one at the flowerbed was the most advanced security system. Of course, she did not have so much money to buy so many things. It was Uncle Guo who gave her a card and took out his own money. He told her that if she wanted to do it, she should do it to the best of her ability. Fu Yunruo finally accepted the card and took the corresponding shares according to the proportion of Uncle Guo's investment. After signing a contract, if there were profits in the future, she would receive dividends according to the contract. Of course, the expensive orchids that Uncle Guo was raising were still Uncle Guo's. Uncle Guo looked around with his hands behind his back and nodded in satisfaction. Not bad. Wen had unknowingly gotten down from her chair and followed behind Uncle Guo with her hands behind her back. She walked with her short legs and looked around from time to time before nodding. Not bad, not bad. Her small clothes were bulging. Her little chubby hands could not be behind her back and were pinned to her sides. She walked a little shakily like a little penguin. People could not help but laugh when they saw her. After everything was tidied up, Uncle Guo bluntly asked them to leave. Fu Yunruo hurriedly smiled at her senior brothers and sisters. Let's gather again when we're free another day. The others agreed. We haven't been so complete in more than 10 years. We should gather. When you're done here, there's no hurry. If you need help, just let me know. Don't stand on ceremony. Fu Yunruo smiled and sent them off. She was really too busy today. She was almost done tidying up here, but she had not started tidying up the villa. Fu Yunruo settled the wages of the movers and left quickly. Kai Wei Cheng shamelessly stayed behind. Uncle Guo looked at the small second floor not far away and said, "I'll stay here." Other than the fact that this flowerbed was a little bigger, it was roughly the same as the one at home, so Uncle Guo was not uncomfortable. Fu Yunruo saw that Uncle Guo looked like he was going to stay here for a long time, so she immediately rejected him. That won't do. There was a small 2-story red brick house near the flower shed. It was left behind from before. Fu Yunruo had seen it before. Everything was complete. There were 3 rooms upstairs. There was a room downstairs, a living room, a kitchen, and so on. Such a large flowerbed still needed someone to take care of it. Fu Yunruo decided that the 2 rooms upstairs would be Uncle Guo's. She and Wen would share one room, and 2 employees would be hired to take care of the other 2 rooms. Fu Yunruo did not want Uncle Guo to stay here for a long time. She wanted him to stay in the villa with them so that it would be convenient for him to take care of her. Anyway, she often came back, so they could stay together. It was better to leave a room just in case. When the children were on vacation, they could stay here for 2 days. Uncle Guo snorted coldly. He was a little dissatisfied, but when he saw Fu Yunruo's expression, he did not say anything else. The group of people took a car to the villa. They got out of the car, and the main door was wide open. There were countless luggage bags and bags in the hall on the first floor. A broken home was worth thousands of coins. They packed up the things in the house and realized that they could not bear to give this away. It was full of memories. In the end, they reduced it again and again. What was left were the things that they could not bear to give away the most. The rest were given to the adults and children in the village. However, there were still so many things. "Ruo, you're back?" Tian said. She did not go to the flowerbed. Instead, she came directly to the villa to take care of the checked luggage. "I didn't know how you were going to pack, so I didn't dare to move." "It's okay." There was a heater in the house, and the temperature was much higher than outside. Fu Yunruo felt hot after standing for a while, so she took off her coat. Seeing that Wen's cheeks were steaming hot, she took off his coat and hat and told him not to go outside. Wen responded. Then, with his sharp eyes, he saw the small luggage bag that he had packed and quickly ran over to pick it up. This was his. He packed it. They were just about to pack all the luggage in the hall when they heard the doorbell ring. Fu Yunruo was puzzled. They had never lived here before, so they should not know any neighbors. Why would someone come to look for them now? She was about to go out and take a look when Wen shouted, "Mom, put on your coat." "Got it. Little housekeeper." Fu Yunruo quickly put on her coat and walked out. Wen sighed. His mother was really too worrisome sometimes. You're tuning in to the Dreamy Chapters YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.